here from the pond in Alhambra in Granada, Spain. Fortress complex renowned for the stunning architecture and landscape gardens. We are here today coming back to you for our regularly, that's right, you heard me correctly, regularly scheduled weekly, I shouldn't say weekly, recap slash StarCraft news podcast show content thing. The podcast number, I think 14 or 15 or something like that. Where we did more
13.
than 12.
13.
13. There
Yeah.
we go. That's more than 12. I am definitely not a degen, Yaku of Dizaku, and with me today, saving me from that, is El Melón Ubari que tiene un puesto que vende limones, like underscore VIP, and we are also joined and produced by Taksiorkash Kitori Faktijniewoli Podrozowash Kuro of the Sanseki.
It's been a
How are we
while
doing?
since you've brushed. It's been a while since you've brushed up on your Polish. But I approve. It was very
Since I
fluent. It was
polished
very
my
elegant.
Polish, yeah.
Yeah. It was very natural, I should say. But what's up, Yako? What's up? It's great to be back, as you mentioned, to our regular scheduled programming here. Clearly, we haven't been on a multiple year hiatus on the podcast. Clearly, everyone knows exactly what this is because we do this all the time.
Yeah. How
Yeah,
else would, yeah. How else would people get their recaps or their content?
exactly. Exactly. For those that are curious, for those that are maybe newer viewers of the channel that weren't here, in 2017, 2018, when we first did this, the podcast was meant to be a semi-regular show where we come in, where we, go over topics of the week, of the month, of the season. But alas, we kind of got engrossed in casting events on a very regular basis, and we had a hard time finding time to actually have a podcast. So it's been a while. It's been a while.
Yeah, it has. But hey, now we're in the off season. I think it was actually decided specifically to get fewer casts on this channel and more
Uh-huh.
podcasts instead.
Yeah. Technically, still a
That's
cast.
why it
True.
happened. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's why we
exactly.
don't have
Exactly.
any EPT stuff this month.
True. That's the reason. It's our fault. It's oh no. But yeah, as Yak was alluding to, because usually we cast on a daily basis here on the Cranky Ducklings multiple times a day as well. But now that we're in the off season, we have some free days off, which means we can actually slot in something like this, something like a bit of a recap show to go over all the events of the week. As much as we do a bunch of casting, I know that it can be difficult to actually watch everything live and watch all the events that are going on, and even events that we don't cover here on the Cranky Ducklings. So this is just a bit of a way for us to kind of catch up and talk about all the events that have been happening over the past week.
Indeed, and you'd think that coming on into the off season, we'd have a little bit of a lull, but there were actually quite a number of things, and quite a number of, shall we say, more quirky, interesting tournaments coming up in this past week.
Mhm. Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's been really cool to see a lot of people diversify, whether it's FFAs, whether it's 2v2s, whether it's some mod tournaments as well. It's been really cool to see people kind of like branch out a little bit, have a little bit more fun, now that we're in the off season. But there's also some other big events that have been going on as well. So there's a lot to go over, a lot to talk about.
Yeah, a lot of regional events, which are neat. How
Mhm.
did we actually decide on what order we're going to be going through this, or or is it just alphabetical?
Top to bottom. It's fine.
Top to
It's fine.
bottom. All right, here we go.
Yeah. Well, the big news, the big thing, of course, that you did kind of mention as well when coming into the show is the end of EBT and the final EBT weeklies for now of the season.
Yeah, we had 242 weeks of the ESL Open Cups.
Hmm.
Technically of the ESL Pro Tour as well, I guess.
Hmm.
Since they were technically part of the EPT, but yeah, they finally come to an end a week ago, funnily enough, and we have winners and we have had tournaments in those.
Yeah, yeah. I guess technically the final champions of the EPT weeklies of each region. We don't know if this is going to be coming back. Hopefully it does. But for now, the final champions here for 242 weeks of EPT. It's been so long. It's been years. We kind of started around the same time as the EPT started as well. So it's kind of the end of an era. It's a little bit bittersweet.
Yeah, without a doubt. We, yeah. so so I put it. I think yeah, the EPT was kind of where we specifically on the Crazy Ducklings channel started to get a little bit bigger, so to speak. How we were able to get a couple more of these B stream casts, some of these
Mhm,
more regional or yeah, I guess through those regionals, and then eventually through some of the remote broadcast stuff as well. But yeah,
mhm.
now we're finally at the end of the era. Hopefully, it's only the first era, and we're going to be getting the second one soon. But this is what we're kind of left with. A little bit of a caveat in these past couple of, or in these final three weeklies, EPT weeklies that we've had, is a lot of. It's something to keep in mind is that a lot of players who you normally expect to play in these were in the middle of the sky at the time that this
Yeah.
happened.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Especially because the previous couple of weeks, because of EWC, a lot of players were traveling. But here, everyone had settled back home. And just quickly going over ESL Asia, for example, we had Shin popping off. Of course, we actually casted that together last week, Yaku. And it was a lot of fun. I think a lot of people were a little bit surprised by the results as well. Shin actually, as you were alluding to, doesn't usually play these weeklies. Shin, he's usually like he pops up like every couple of months, maybe, or maybe once a month. He's not really a regular competitor here, so it was really exciting to see him show up once again here for the final week.
Yeah, kind of a very sporadic competitor when it comes to these weekly events. So it's not like he's never showing up for
Mhm,
them, but he's not somebody who you can always count to be there, like compared to somebody like say Classic or Max Packs, who we know that are week after
mhm,
week without fail, they could be getting ready for their finals, for their
mhm,
final placement in whatever tournament they're going to be playing at
mhm.
in that same day, and they're still going to show up for the weekly. But it was nice to see him. He came in, and I think I mean, I was very surprised that the final ended up being a 3-0 in favor of Shin, but he did bring up
Mhm.
that trademark big brain Zerg, is what I'll say.
Yeah, he was hyper aggressive. Shin, he was very aggressive against Bjorn, and he was able to shut Bjorn down before he could really get going. Bjorn often going for like these two Rex Reaper openers, Shin playing very safely, and Shin was shutting Bjorn down at every turn. It was actually really impressive to see Shin pop off against Bjorn, against Trap as well. Something important to bear in mind as well, a bit of a fun fact, if you remember, you were talking about how some players weren't around for this event. This is post EWC, and Solar was on vacation. If you remember, he
Hmm.
posted a photo on Twitter of like, life without Protoss, and he's
Yep.
like on a yacht or like he's on the beach, like just enjoying life.
Got a steak.
Mhm. Oh, true, true. Yeah, yeah. He had the steak as well. So for those that are curious, so Solar wasn't here. For example, he was on vacation. Dark, I imagine, and many of the others were also on a bit of vacation as well, like post EWC. From the players that did show up, though, it was still very competitive. Rogue was here, Trap was here as well. But Shin, yeah, did have a very surprising, very dominant performance in the finals. I remember we were really shocked to see just how fast the finals was as well. So yeah, it was a pleasant surprise.
Yeah. Yeah, I do agree. The one other major surprise I would say that I kind of had
Mhm,
here was actually Lancer's result. And yeah, he lost to Trap in the quarterfinals towards the end there, but to
mhm.
get there, you'll notice that there was another Protoss player he faced earlier on. A player who the two of us, have actually been hyping up a lot on this channel, Firefly. Uh, Arguably the best Protoss player from China. And yeah, I think right now you can't really dispute that. He's absolutely one of the
Mhm,
best players in the rest of Asia region, and absolutely without a doubt the best Protoss player in rest. I guess if you want to count the entire rest of Asia, that can be a little bit disputable depending on
mhm.
how in form somebody like Nice is, for example. But yeah, definitely the best Protoss player from China, a very clutch player who's been known to really take ace matches, so very important victories in WTL and Firefly. or Blantive, sorry, managed to come out on top over Firefly.
Oh yeah, yeah, really impressive stuff there. Again, like we're kind of big fans of Firefly. We're a little bit biased, a little bit, but he is also a really good player for good reason. There's a reason why we do follow Firefly quite a lot. So for that to go to the Ace match was really exciting. It was crazy to see Lancer advance on there. I didn't go much further than that, but yeah, yeah, I look forward to seeing more of these players in the future. We'll get into the future of a lot of these weeklies later on down the line as well. But yeah, that was the first week or the last week of EPT Asia, followed by EPT Europe. Now, here on this channel, we do cast a lot of StarCraft. We usually do not cast the European weekly, so this is something that we did we weren't able to really witness firsthand. But first thing I see, has a lot of PvP. That's
Yep.
oh god.
And you thought the Platypus Open was
Mm-hmm.
bad
Uh-huh.
for PvP.
True, true. I mean, hey, Europe is
You thought
known
it
for
was
its Europe.
Sparkling Protest Cup. No.
The final ESL Protoss Cup. Let's go. Let's go. Again, Europe, it's known for like the quantity of European Protoss players at a high level. So there's a lot of PvPs going on there. Likewise, there are some players that are missing. More notably, Clem wasn't here for this, but if you remember, we were talking about some players going on vacation at the time. I believe Clem was also in Greece as well.
Yeah. I imagine on the same yacht or similarly on a yacht.
uh, is it like the non-Protoss yacht? It's like where
Yep.
the Terrans and Zerg players converge on their time off and they just have a good time together.
Yep. They merge their budgets when they go on
Mhm.
vacations.
Sounds beautiful. It sounds beautiful. So Clem wasn't here for this ESL European Weekly, but still, again, some amazing players. Max Pax, you expect to be there week after week because he doesn't travel typically,
Yeah.
and he was the one to go far.
Yeah. Out of all the Protoss players, he actually beat not all of them because that was just how many Protoss players there were, but yeah, he pretty much beat nothing but Protoss
Hmm.
in this event. Now, Wikipedia does cut off uh, rounds before the round of 32, if I'm not mistaken. So
Hmm.
there's a pretty high chance that he did face at least one non-Protoss, but I say high chance. It's 50-50.
Nah, it's EU. It's ESL EU made. It's purely Protoss. It's
Yeah.
so you're right. It's possible that he maybe only played purely PvP and just won the tournament off of that. And I mean, Max Specs has some of the best PvP in the world. Very unique PvP as well. That's why it's always fun watching him. Shout out to Showtime because he did pose a threat to Max Specs and did end up taking a game. And we have seen Showtime defeat Max Specs in the past.
Yeah. Not this time, unfortunately, but
Hmm.
yeah, many times in the past, Showtime having a bit more of a varied, a bit more of a varied path to those finals. So
Uh huh.
maybe that was something that was in a, maybe that was something that ended up working against his favor. But I mean, you can't really. It's tough to really hold it against him. Max Fax, he is the best Protoss player in Europe for a reason
Hmm. Yeah,
because
they're
he
actually
plays in
like
every single ESL Protoss Cup.
true, exactly, exactly. If you want to get good at PvP, you play in this tournament. True, true. But there are some gems here in this bracket, and again, we usually don't cover these. We usually don't cast them. So I hope it was casted by someone. But I see one that's a little bit near and dear to my heart. Indy versus Dolan in the round of 32. Indy brings him down. This is a bit of a fun fact. Indy, he's the Polish caster. He's actually pretty good, and I've actually casted him before. He can actually take it to some of these pros or semi pros. Like Indy's like a little bit underrated, and yeah, it's always surprising to see him pull off sometimes here and there in these brackets. It's impressive.
Yeah, I I would agree with you on that one. There are a number of casters who have been able to take it to some of these pros, but you don't see it too often for
Mhm,
whatever reason. I think the a lot of the times when we think of a caster who can take it and take down some of the pro players or the full-time pro players, you normally think of the full-time pros who also cast a lot. People like Lambo and Hearthstone, for instance. But Indy
mhm,
is kind of the inverse of that. I'm not sure if we could really say that he's a full-time caster, but he does when it comes to most of his involvement with StarCraft, it is as a caster, and yet
mhm.
he also plays and competes a lot, and he also wins quite a bit.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, shout out to Indy. You know, my heart goes out to Dolan. Now how dare he hurt my boy? But but regardless, GG to Indy. Likewise, some other interesting results to quickly gloss over as well is Minovi K took a game off of Spirit. That's crazy.
Ooh.
That's yeah,
Yeah,
really impressive.
Spirit,
Like
who
Minovi
is our most no wait, that's spoilers for later.
I mean, he's a damn good player. So for MiddleVK and for Geralt to take maps, it bodes well for them. It bodes well. I know MiddleVK has been around for a long time, around the middle of the pack in the European Pro Tour scene, and yeah, for him to take a game there, for Geralt to take a game there as well. You know, impressive stuff. So special honorable shout outs to Geralt and MiddleVK. Didn't defeat Spirit, but did force the ace match.
Yeah. Let's look it over the bracket once, one final time to make sure that I don't miss any other interesting matches that we want to talk about. I see T-Bull back in here. Always nice to see T-Bull
Yeah.
around. He has a very interesting style, a very DT heavy style, which I always appreciate. So took a game off of Azura, but ultimately did fall. But as I said, it's always nice seeing T-Bull around.
Yeah, I thought T-Bull retired. Not gonna lie. Like I've seen Zane pop. Like Zane's been traveling a lot. Zane, he's been going to Korea and spending time with a lot of pro gamers. So yeah, really cool to see T-Bull make a bit of a resurgence there. Hope to see more of him in the future as we can hop over to the Americas Weekly, the final weekly. Of course, we have one for each region, and this one was another. I mean, I guess shouldn't be too much of a surprise. Max Pax blazing his way through the tournament. We were lucky enough to cast this, but we did focus on the lower half of the bracket, so we didn't get to cast Max Pax until the end. But yeah, Max Pax, he did not drop a single map here in this tournament. It's crazy.
Whew. Yeah, that is insane. Almost managed to do two perfect runs in one night, but unfortunately,
Mhm,
Showtime had had something to say about that. But still, two wins in a single night and going through
mhm.
an entire gauntlet of PvP like this. I'm sure it's not easy whatsoever, especially for somebody like Max Pax, who pretty much has to pull an all nighter in order to be able to play at the end of in order to be awake first of all for the
Mhm.
finals, let alone win the whole thing in a perfect 3-0. That's against
Yeah, we
Nightmare no less, who has been known for
yeah,
years to be the PvP sniper.
for sure, for sure. I mean, there's a reason why we always make jokes and we always say that, you know, Max Pax and Clem, the degens of the European scene, and a couple of the other Europeans
Yeah,
as well,
it's
because hmm?
it's only half a joke when we say that. There's
it's
a reason
there's
why
some
we joke. It's
yeah,
because it's
yeah,
not
yeah.
a joke.
Part of it is based in truth, and that is the fact that they, on a very regular basis, compete up until like 4, 5, 6 a.m. in the morning, and they usually stay wake up later in the afternoon in the European time zone. So yeah, but I mean for good reason, right? They're out here, they're winning tournaments, they're going far, so there's a reason for it. Really, they would have just been up anyway, even if there was no tournament. But but regardless, really impressive results there out of MaxFax. When it comes to our coverage, we were focusing on Nightmare. We were casting a lot of Nightmare, a lot of the lower bracket matches, and it was really cool to see Paddy Mac again. Paddy Mac, he
Hmm.
came back from China. He's back in the Americas. He
Oh,
has been back in the Americas for I think a month or two now, and he's been streaming very regularly. And yeah, he popped off. Honestly, he almost 2-0 Nightmare.
ooh,
We casted this series, and Patty Mac, he was so close to 2-0 Nightmare. He like barely couldn't pull it off. It was very chaotic. There were a lot of all-ins, as you can imagine. That PvP, I recommend the VODs. It was a wild PvP, almost 2-0. It was impressive. I was impressed.
dang. So what ultimately tripped him up there?
When the Ace match, they played standard. Like
Ah,
game one and game two were all ins, and like if I remember correctly, I believe game one, Nightmare tried to all in Patty, and Patty survived and defended, and then game two, Patty all in Nightmare, and almost broke him. It was so close. And then game three was standard macro, and Nightmare was more dominant.
we were both
But
traumatized. Yeah.
yeah, true. So yeah, that's how the series did end. But I recommend it. Likewise, I remember a lot of people being surprised at the time, but Nightmare took down Bjorn. That was a very close series and it was very intense. I want to say that was maybe the series of the tournament. Just because the finals was a little bit more one sided. Like like Max X
Mm,
was looking really dominant in the finals, but Beyond and Nightmare was very back and forth and very scrappy as well, which is kind of what we love to see.
yeah, definitely. Especially, I mean, once again, just looking at this bracket, it seems like there's a lot of 2-0. There were a lot of 2-0s coming down.
Uh huh.
So we'll take those ace matches when we can get them.
For sure. For sure, for sure. But yeah, as I mentioned before, the finals was a little bit more lackluster, was a little bit more I mean, again, Max Pack showing off his prowess in PvP, and Nightmare was doing his best to trip him up, but had a bit of a harder time doing so. Some of the other matches that we weren't able to cover here though, something crazy actually. Shameless, he took a game off of Cure. It's crazy.
He did. Wow. Not something I would expect, but
Yeah,
that's why
yeah.
it's so impressive.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure we're going to be bringing Shameless up later on just because he is a very active player. For those that don't know, Shameless, he's a very young up and comer in the European region, and he's been getting better and better results over time. It was really this year where he's been popping off. Up until this year, he was like a ladder hero. He would play for Hokkaido T team in like online team league matches as a Masters player more than anything. And like end of last year, beginning of this year, like he really like leveled up. I don't know what it is. I don't know if he like just started to devote more time or what it was that kind of like sparked that fire within him. But Shameless, he's been looking really impressive, and he's definitely like one of the up and comers to keep an eye on in the European region.
Yeah. We'll watch his
Okay,
career with I don't remember how the rest of that quote goes.
it's all good. It's all good. So yeah, really cool to see that he took a game off of Cure. What I'm saying, because Cure, like he's someone that we expect to not really have much issue going into the semifinals. So yeah, impressive, impressive.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah, but with that, I guess we can head on over. We can head on over to. Well, I guess with that, we're wrapping up the ESL Open Cups, and yeah, it was a bit of a shame to see it all end, and hopefully we see it come back in the future. But those
yeah.
were our final champions. Double Max Packs, I guess fitting. You know, he
Yeah.
usually does win them.
Yeah. Pretty much. Look, if we're not gonna be getting max packs in an offline event, he may as well win every single online event. I think that's a fair compromise for us.
Yeah. The only thing we were missing is no Clem, even though especially because like we haven't actually seen Clem versus Max Packs in a while, just because Clem was spending a lot of time in Korea, right? Like post or pre EWC. And for the
Mhm.
final weekly, it would have been nice to have seen a little bit of Max Packs versus Clem here, but again, Clem was in Greece or Clem was on vacation, so we were robbed of that at the end. But yeah, that's the only thing that I would have wanted out of one of these weeklies, but it's all good. It's all good.
Yeah. They ended how they ended.
And then of course we had a Code for Giants Cup. This is an event that's a little bit more under the radar. We've been covering it recently. Shout out to Cosmos. Cosmos, he is kind of like the Wardy of Brazil. Maybe that's like the best way of putting it, but like he's the Brazilian caster. He does a lot of content for the Brazilian scene, and this year, not too long ago, he started up his own Brazilian only tournament.
Yeah, the Code for Giants Cup, and we've had a couple of them. And I don't want to say they were sporadic because technically they are bi-weekly, so yeah, we've only had about 9 of them so far, but we generally have some pretty good turnout for it, and the players definitely appreciate it from what I hear.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, it's really cool. I know that a lot of the newer viewers of the channel may not know this, but we used to cover a lot of Latin American stuff back in the day. Used to cover tournaments like La Espida and Battle of the Americas and Copa Hyperion and Sentimiento Latino and Copa America. Like that's kind of where we started as the CranKy Ducklings. And there used to be a lot more like only Brazilian events or only Peruvian events or only Chilean events. Like it was a lot more the Latin American scene was thriving a lot more a couple of years ago, and
What wa
it all slowly died out over time.
yeah, what was that name of that? I think it was Chilean event that had like 200
Mhm.
participants or something like that.
Rebirth, yeah.
Rebirth Cup. That was insane back in the day.
I think that was
And
our
it was only
first
for a
like.
single.
You on?
Yeah, I was gonna say, and that wasn't even like Latin America overall. That was literally just Chile.
Yeah. Yeah, oh god, memories here. I think that was our first like 13-hour cast. Like the bracket was huge. It was a
Yes.
massive bracket with 200 players, and I was casting with Yoda, and we were delirious by the end of it. Like we were struggling hard. But yeah, that was like our first like 13, 14-hour cast, like 200 players, like all of them from Chile. It was crazy. It was insane. Um yeah, like that's kind of like the height. That was the height of the Latin American scene. That was back in like 2020, 2021.
Yeah. Fortunately, had a little bit of a lull since then, but it's nice to see that there are more grassroots and
Mhm.
there are more efforts on the grassroots level to bring back a little bit more, a couple more events to keep the scene going.
Definitely, definitely. It's so sad, like kind of what happened to the Latin American scene, just because it was so huge, and it was, I would say, the biggest scene out of all of them, bigger than Europe, bigger than the Americas. But a lot happened at once. It was the merging and the dissolution of the Latin American EPT. If you remember,
Hmm.
um, Oceania got merged with Taiwan, Hong Kong, and China. That was like a year or two ago. Same with Latin America; they got merged with North America, and they got rid of the Latin American portion, and that killed a lot of interest from like the more up and coming Latin American players. On top of that, some other like kind of unrelated things happened at once.
Hmm.
Jim Rising stopped playing. Jim
Yeah,
Rising, he's a massive
became a
streamer,
dad.
and if yeah, true. He became a dad. He's a massive streamer. He gets so much viewership. He was a big part of the Latin American scene, and he stopped streaming StarCraft. He started becoming a variety streamer instead. So, because of that, like a lot less eyes suddenly became on the Latin American scene. Demon Swap, that was a big content creator, he stopped doing StarCraft. He started doing Diablo. He became like a Diablo streamer. Um, Darking started working at Twitch, so he couldn't run tournaments anymore. Like, like it was just all these little things like surrounding the Latin American scene. Just like they all kind of went their own way, and it all impacted the Latin American scene pretty heavily.
Yeah,
Like it wasn't just one thing, but it
even
was like
yeah,
all these little things happening at once.
even on the player level. Like, I mean, we knew quite a number of up and coming players who were semi-competitive. I mean, there were a lot of them who definitely had the potential to keep going full time and becoming more just keep going full time and become more of a high level pro, so to speak. In the
Mhm.
end, just looked at their options and decided that yeah, that wasn't the best option for them. Some ended
Yeah,
up going.
especially
Some of them ended up going back to school. Some of them ended up finishing school,
yeah, true.
and so ended up pursuing other careers.
Yeah, yeah, and because of that, like a lot of something that added to that was all the weeklies, dying off, right? Like Copa
Hmm.
Hyperion and Sentimiento Latino, and they all stopped. Which is why I really appreciate that Cosmos started one up again, right? It's been a long time.
Yeah.
It's been a long time since we had like a Brazilian only tournament like this. So big shout out to Cosmos. I got so excited when I heard that he was doing this. I got in touch almost immediately. I tried to, get involved, and yeah, shout out to Cosmos. And when it comes to these players, a lot of these players are players that we've been casting for many years. I still remember when
A
Yan, you
lot
can
of
see Yan
familiar
there.
face.
Yeah, I think he's younger than you, Yaku.
Yeah, I believe
Yan,
so.
I remember when he was
2004.
actually, yeah, he was
His
too
name. Whoa.
young.
Okay,
Oh,
you
go
go
on, go on.
first. You go first.
I was gonna say, I remember when he was too young to play in EPT. I remember there was a season of EPT. I was like, mate, why aren't you playing in EPT Latin America? He's like, Papi, I'm not allowed. Like, I'm 14 years old. I'm like, oh, never mind. So he had to wait until he got older a little bit, then he could start competing. It's been really cool to see him grow
Yeah,
over the years.
yeah, without a doubt. I still remember us being completely confused at his name. Is it Yanzi or is it Yan the 12th? But we have confirmation. It's Yan Oliveira, according to Wikipedia. I'm not joking. I'm looking at
Are
Wikipedia
you
right now.
serious?
Yan Oliveira,
No
born in
shot.
2004.
No shot. Mate,
And he plays
Oliveira?
Sharon. Yeah.
He was Oliveira all along. Oh my god! Oh, how did I know? How did I never see that? Oh my, that's crazy! It's Oliveira. It makes sense.
It's all coming together.
See, really, this is really Oliveira didn't name himself over the kickboxer. He named himself for
Yeah,
Yan.
after
There you
Yan.
go.
Yeah.
True. Facts.
Yeah, kidding aside, I believe it is Yancy. I think he did tell us that at one point.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's not
I
Roman
believe.
numerals. Yeah.
I believe so. I believe so. But yeah, it's really cool to see Yan returning. Not just Yan. And if you see Nano, he doesn't go by Nano anymore. We should probably fix that on Wikipedia. That's Shakti,
Let's
aka
see.
Nano.
There we go. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. He name changed years ago from Nano back to Shakti. He was originally Shakti, then Nano for like 2 years, and then back to Shakti for years since then. But yeah, he was retired. He was a retired player. At one point, he was, I would say, top two Protoss in Latin America, top two with Paco Mike. And then he retired. He stepped away. Master stepped in, and I would say currently Master is the best player, best Protoss player in Latin America, which is why I was so hyped to see them face off in the round of 16. You can see it there, and it was like the young up and comer up against the veteran himself, and it was a crazy PvP. Ended in like 10 minutes.
Well, more. Yep. That's Latin American PvP for you. That's why I always loved
Yeah.
casting. Well, if I could ever wake up in time, why I always loved casting the Latin America weeklies.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. It was a
It
very
was so
short series,
quick.
but it was
Yeah,
beautiful.
it was so
Mhm.
quick and so intense. And in the end, I guess the old guard kind of came in and showed that he still had a couple of tricks.
Yeah, he still got it, but I was shocked to see Nano or Shakti win this weekly just because he's been retired for a very, very long time and he's not actively playing anymore. So yeah, clearly, it's like riding a bike sort of
Wo-
thing,
Yeah,
and he did well.
and he won by only dropping a single map.
Hmm. Oh yeah, yeah, very impressive. We dropped him after Yan, so shout out to Yan, our boy.
Yeah.
We already spoke about him. Was the only one to really slip him up. But yeah, Shakti, he was looking really good, and it was really cool to see him winning here. Just because, fun fact, Shakti he came back another time, like 2 weeks ago or something, in another Code for Giants Cup, and he faced off against Eric, and Eric him, in very Eric fashion.
Yeah.
And I remember after that series, Shakti is like, "I'm never playing StarCraft again." Like you, like you, you've
Get Eric,
destroyed my brain.
son.
He was very sad. He was very sad about that series. But yeah, it's really cool to see him bounce back here. We are missing some players. Like Eric wasn't here, Inexorable wasn't here either. But we made up for it with Nano or Shakti, and yeah, it was a really good performance.
Yeah. It's cool to see. Is there a story behind the name Code for Giants Cup that we know of?
Uh, that is one of the sponsors that's actually called Code for Giants. That's the sponsor. I don't know what they
Oh, there we
do. I
go
think
then.
they're like they have a website. I don't know if Kuro knows what they do, but they have their own website. It's a Brazilian site, and I think they have courses question mark for like like they do like programming courses and stuff like that. Like they
Oh,
provide online programming courses and like uh learning how to do like JavaScript and all this stuff. I think it's like a learning tool basically,
that's neat.
and they're fans of StarCraft.
Yeah, evidently.
Mhm. So yeah, so unfortunately, there's no fancy story behind it. It's just a
Okay,
sponsor.
well, yeah. There's no.
Unfortunately,
We were randomly trying to come up with something that would fit with
Mhm.
a aquatic animal. No stories
Unfortunately,
like
no,
that.
no. They got to get on that. They got to get on our level. Yeah, it was really cool to see another Code for Giants Cup, and this is a bi-weekly for those that are unaware, and I do look forward to the
Yeah.
future of these events. I'm sure
So
Cosmos.
yeah, not gonna be one this week. I don't. No, wait. Yeah, not gonna be one this week, but there should be one next week.
Yes, yes, exactly, exactly. So always excited to cast some Brazilian StarCraft. Heading on over, we have something very similar here. We have the American StarCraft Tournament, the AST, if you will. And this is potentially not a one-off event. We were able to cast the first iteration, and the organizer behind it was definitely thinking about hosting another one. And this was an invitational where they reached out and they got together as many players as they could from Latin America, from North America, and they hosted this event.
Yeah. So regular invitational. That would be pretty neat. But I mean, before we go into discussing that, we should probably mention that Eon, not a player who I haven't seen in a very long time. Let's see him still kicking around. Ended up winning by taking out a player by the name of Ryojin, who isn't
Mhm.
somebody I'm familiar with.
Yeah, mate, Eon popped off. I'll be honest. I'll be honest. I didn't expect Eon to go far. I expected him to
Oh,
make it to the quarterfinals and then be ended. Like Eon's a very aggressive, very cheesy player, so I was very surprised and very pleasantly surprised to see him pop off in the semis and finals. Um, I am a little bit sad. I was trying to cover him and trying to cast him, but we missed out on Eon versus Cristiano. Like that's a spicy
oof.
series, and I would have been all over that, but I missed out. I missed out, and yeah, Eon he popped off. But again, when it came to this to this invitational, it was basically just a Latin American one. There was Ninja, the American Protoss, but everyone else was from Latin America. And we had Tavo, we had Neo, the ex Cranky Duckling, Cristiano, Eon, Ryojin, Facebooka, Luciano, and Exorbital. Like it was just like an Avengers like assemble of like Latin American players. It was like really cool to see everyone together again. And I remember when we were getting ready for the tournament, everyone was setting up. So many of the players were like, "Oh my god, it's the Ducklings, it's Los Patos! Like we remember you. Like it's we haven't casted them for so many years, but like they still were happy to see us again. So it was really cool, really exciting.
Yeah, and feelings mutual there.
Mhm. Sure,
I
for
still,
sure.
yeah, I still can't get over the name though. The American StarCraft tournament. That's
And there's only
yeah.
one American. That's the thing. That's the thing. The American StarCraft
Well,
tournament, and there's one American in it.
technically, Eon is dual citizen,
True. Kind of.
kind of ish.
Oh my god. So yeah, not the best name for the tournament, I will say. It's kind of yeah, it's very kind of like bland, but also it doesn't feel very fitting just because it's Latin American, but I'm sure they'll get some more American players
Well,
involved
here's the
next time,
thing.
I'm sure.
Well, no, here's the thing. It's called the American StarCraft tournament. They're allowed one.
Mhm. Okay,
It's not the
true.
Americans StarCraft tournament.
Yeah. It's intentional. Yeah, true.
Yeah,
American. Only room for one. Only one. Mm, there you go. See? It all makes sense.
and that's
uh,
why it was an invitational.
there you go. There you go. But yeah, it was a really fun event to be honest. It was really nostalgic as well, casting Davo, Neo, Cristiano, Eon, like all players that I mean, we were on a bit of a tangent earlier about the Latin American scene, and because of our close ties, like all these players are basically new and they knew us, and yeah, it was really it was wholesome, is what it was. It was very wholesome. They were all dropping by in the chat as well, even after they got knocked out, and having fun and talking about the matches, and
But Dusek, I
yeah,
would
it's
like to add that not only we had all these players playing, but we also had a bunch of people showing up in the chat. Like we had people like
yeah,
eggs showing in the chat. Like why wasn't I invited? Like invite me next time.
yeah.
There was password. There were several
Mhm.
people like we remember from the days of when Latin America was more active, and they were all showing up in the chat and like showing interest for playing in these tournaments as well. So
Mhm.
just saying,
The
there's potential
The
there.
Zerglord
The
doesn't.
Zerglot,
Yeah,
yeah,
the.
yeah.
Yeah, it was really cool to see everyone drop by and everyone express interest, and that gives me hope for the future of these events. And again, it's all kind of in line with what we mentioned before, how there's been a big hiatus or a big just a big hole in the scene for Latin American tournaments, and they're slowly rising back up again. So it's really cool to see whether it's Cosmos doing the Brazilian events or this invitational as well, where there are plans to do more. Yeah, it's really cool to see a bit of a resurgence.
Yeah. Hopefully, when we get Avengers, no wait, sorry, American StarCraft tournament 2, we'll have some of those other familiar names that
uh,
weren't invited the first time around, but fingers crossed, we get
for
into the
sure, for
larger
sure.
bracket.
I look forward to it. Look forward to it. Again, the organizer was definitely expressing interest of hosting these again, maybe on a monthly basis or maybe every couple of weeks. There's definitely plans for more in the future, and of course, we'll always be there to talk about it and bring it up um, as we can. Yeah, head on over to our next event. Something a little bit more that we're used to seeing. Not a new event. OC King of the Hill.
Yeah, not a new event, an event that's been going on for literally 5 years at this point. Wow.
Jesus.
It's a lot of kings of the hill. A lot of hills, a lot of kings.
Hey, I this has been running. 2019 was 5 years ago. That's
It
crazy.
was.
Oh my god.
24-hour special was 3 years ago.
God, it feels like yesterday. Oh my god. But yeah, as you mentioned, OC King of the Hill. In my brain, it feels like a newer event, but I guess it's been around for a long time, and it's very refreshing. I guess what's interesting is that despite this event running for 4 or 5 years, I don't think anyone else, I don't think any other tournament organizers tried to like tackle this kind of format and do it themselves.
Yeah, not with the same regularity, that's for sure. For some reason, King of the Hill just isn't as popular as it used to be, I guess.
I mean, it's just a lot of work to organize, right? Because you have
True,
to.
you have to get yeah. Because it's not only making the bracket and then posting it everywhere and then being like, all right,
Mhm,
here's the details, people sign up, and then we'll have a whatchamacallit. Not only have to wrangle, like in this case, 15 players. Well, sometimes it's a little bit less than 15, but give or take 15 unique players, and then have them in a specific order and say, okay, I need you to be available from this time to this time, but that you might not be playing until so and so time, and that's entirely dependent on how quickly some of these other games go.
mhm. 100%. I still remember when Total Biscuit was hosting his King of the Hill events, his Shoutcraft King of the Hills,
Shellcraft,
and
yeah.
he was yeah, and he was talking about the organizational side of things, and the
Oof.
way that he combated it was he would have like slots of or like he'd have like waves of players. He'd tell like 5 players for this time, 5 players for like an hour later, 5 players for an hour later, so they would come in like waves to be available, just so that you don't have players waiting for like hours on end to actually play and compete, so you don't have them like just waiting for a chance to play and stuff like that. So yeah, there's definitely a system to have this be a little bit smoother to organize.
Yeah. So that's a tip for all you other tournament organizers out there. Get some King of the Hills in.
There you go. There you go. When it comes to this King of the Hill, I believe we didn't cast it. I believe Wardy. Yeah, Wardy did cover this event. Usually we only cast it if Wardy isn't available. So if Wardy's like hosting like a Wardy TV like SummerSlam or another tournament, or if he's traveling, that's when we step in. So yeah, Wardy did cover this, and yeah, I mean for those who are unaware, it's a best of one King of the Hill style format. So winner stays on, loser gets knocked out, and yeah, some really interesting results coming in here. Shout out to Christiana. Christiana going on a bit of a win streak.
Yeah, five maps in a row. Very nicely done here. It's what we've kind of come to expect from Christiana. He's very consistent, or he's
Mhm.
someone who is a regular in a lot of these OSC events. But what we didn't come to expect was who actually took him out.
Yeah, mate. I don't know how to rate this guy, but a shout out to Moja, the German Terran player. He debuted internationally at Home Story Cup, the most recent Home Story Cup. I don't know if you were watching much of it, but Moja, he was invited to the event, and for a lot of people, myself included, we saw Moja for the first time, and he was looking very impressive. And I remember, I was like, what? Why hasn't he been playing in tournaments? Like, what's going on? Like, why is this the first I'm hearing of him? And I think he was interviewed at the event as well, and he was talking about how like he wasn't really too interested in like competing. He was just laddering more than anything, and he just he wasn't really too focused on playing in online tournaments. But it feels like he's been branching out a little bit more recently. He's been actually taking part in these tournaments, which is really cool.
Yeah, that's what Home Story Cup does to us all.
Mhm. Yeah, the passion.
But yeah, really cool
So
to see him in here, and definitely hope to see more of him. Just looking to see if there were any major like upsets or anything like that come down in this particular bracket. I do see Mixu versus Demi.
oh
I imagine that to be a very close CVZ.
Yeah, I'm sure that was a lot of fun. Definitely. Shout out to Bjorn for showing up at the very end, the very end of the tournament. He showed up for one game, and a lot of the big Koreans are very inconsistent when it comes to playing in this event, whether it's Bjorn or Solar, just because the event goes on really late. But for whatever reason, I guess Bjorn was staying up late that night, and yeah, was able to take part. Didn't get to see too much of Bjorn, but
Oh, you
this
know
tells
he's
me that he's
defending it.
true, 100%, 100%. But this tells me that Beyond is going to be available for the next OC King of the Hill as well.
Yeah. I mean, he has to defend his title, right, as the king.
He has to, 100%.
Yeah.
There you go. I'm sure he was venting his frustrations on Skilless after losing to Nightmare in the ESL Open Cup. So yeah, shout out to Wardy for hosting this event, and again, like it's always a lot of fun. It's always really refreshing, just because no one else does OC King of the Hills really on a regular basis. So yeah, it's really cool that this has been continuing for so long.
Another 5 more years.
True. Yeah, five more years. Let's go. And speaking of OC events, up next, of course, was OC Elite Rising Star.
Yeah, something that isn't as old as King to Hill. Or
Mhm.
doesn't happen as often, but is a man, how would we put this? Well, it's kind of as this title suggests, right? It's specifically for some of the rising stars, some of the more up and comers, so to
Mhm.
speak.
Yeah, basically, if you performed a little bit too well in GSL or EPT in your respective regionals, you are ineligible to play in this tournament. So there are some restrictions. So it's exclusively for the players that are still,
Yeah, kind
kind
of.
of trying to break in.
Yeah, kind of like if we have those tiers of players, right? If we have like the absolute top S tier being your world champions, your Clems, your Serals, your Marus, your Max Paxes, etc. And below
Mhm.
that, you have the players who you can regularly expect to make it to at least semifinals. You know, your players like your heroes and your Showtimes and your Gumihos and whatnot. And then I would say Elite Rising Star is probably for the tier below that. Players who do are very consistent, are very regular in a lot of tournaments, and they do make it to playoffs, or there's a very good chance that they'll make it to playoffs, but not necessarily into the semifinals or even the finals.
Mhm. Yeah, exactly. They're all still amazing players. And I think what I really appreciate out of this event and the lineup that they have is that they're all pretty close in skill. So the
Yeah,
matches themselves are really entertaining because of that. You don't have to have Cyril and Rainer and Bjorn and Maru facing off each other to make an entertaining tournament. As long as the players are well within each other's level, like things can look really good and really close, really entertaining, and can make for some really amazing StarCraft. So yeah, we see here in these results a lot of ace matches, for example, a lot of matches going all the way to game three. We see Shameless once again. Forjumi's been popping off recently. Milky Cow making a resurgence. He's an animal. He's crazy. He's the only Terran in the bracket, but he's always a treat to experience as well.
yeah. And that's kind of what happens, right? Is when there's only one, all the all the fallen have to transfer the energy over.
For sure, for sure. And again, this is like a multi-week event, so over the course of I think the month, this event is going to unfold, and no one has been eliminated yet. As you can see, it's double elimination, so the event is still ongoing. But so far, Nikic has been having quite a performance so far. I took down Shameless, took down Art, waiting for the winner of Forjumi and Young Yakov, and I believe these have been casted by I think just Jordan has been covering these events. He
Ooh,
recently came back. I think he's been
it's
taking
an
over.
old name. Yeah,
Oh yeah. He used to be. I
yeah.
think he used to cast Proxy Tempest events back in the day.
He
Um,
did, if not mistaken. Yeah, that's cool to hear. These are, if I'm not mistaken, typically the players themselves kind of schedule when to play their matches and they submit replays.
mhm,
Am I correct? Yeah, there we go.
yeah.
I remember things.
Yeah. So we always champion this sort of stuff as well. Like we used to have our own
It's just so
like
convenient.
Yeah, true, true. But we always champion like these sort of events where there's kind of like challenger league sort of
Oh
stuff where
yes.
desafiantes. Yeah, where like you have like the top players that are competing in the regionals, and then you create something like a code A for like the more up and comers for them to play amongst themselves and to incentivize like improvement and ways for them to earn money as well. Like it's I would say a really necessary system for like a healthy scene.
Yeah, without a doubt. You want to be able to foster competitiveness or competitivity. Is that even? I don't think that's competition. You want to be
Yeah,
able to foster competition.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
At kind of the different levels, so you can have
Mhm.
you kind of nurture these guys,
Yeah, for sure,
and
for
get them
sure.
ready
So.
for so that they will hopefully when they reach it to the higher leagues, will still be competitive or won't be
Mhm.
just jumping in uh, right off the deep end.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I know some of the other top players may be like a little bit frustrated, like oh, like we can't play in this event because it's like locked to them. But it is pretty important here to allow for these players to be able to actually go far and earn some prize money and be motivated as well. So
Yeah,
yeah, shout out to OSC for hosting this event. Big shout out to OSC.
yeah. Always, yeah. Huge shout out to OC all around. I would say.
Mhm.
I mean, they've been here for years, and they've just been so regular at this stuff. Shout out to Eddie for
Mhm.
just throwing money at for I don't know how he gets it, but his ability to fund and organize all of these different tournaments at all of these different levels, whether it's a top level or whether it's kind of the middle level and whatnot, that's insane.
Yeah, the passion is real. The passion is very real. I think yeah, he does invest a lot of his own funds just to keep this running. StarCraft is really near and dear to his heart. So big shout to Eddie. And speaking of events that have been running for a long time, this is an event that is not been running for a long time. It's a very new event, kind of.
Oh.
The Super Show matches.
Yes, not named after Sue,
No.
as I have come to learn, but rather named after the Korean Twitch, I think is what it's called now. Or I think is
Hmm.
what it is trying to be.
It's well, Supers
Super.
is yeah, that's basically Africa. Africa TV has been turned into Soup.
Yeah, they're soup now.
Yeah, they're not
They
solid.
don't lie.
They don't. So, from my understanding, Africa TV is now Supers. Oh, sorry, Soup. Which is also why the ASL, the Africa Star League for Brood War, is now the SSL, which is totally not
Yeah.
confusing because there used to be
Not
an SSL
yeah.
back in the day. Go on, you can do your thing.
You've now made me realize that I actually have never thought about what SSL stands for. Well, the old SSL that was like, if, at one point it was organized by Jin Air, not Jin Air Green Wings, but the parent
Mhm,
company Jin Air, the airline. I gotta look
mhm.
that up right now. Actually, 2017
Hold
SSL.
on, hold on, hold on, hold on, hold on. Oh
Nope,
no,
that's not
because I
what
was
what I want to look
okay,
at.
okay, okay.
SSL.
So it's Spot TV Star League.
Spo
Uh,
TV. That makes a lot more sense.
yeah. But yeah, you're right. Jin Air they used to sponsor. That was after I think that was around the time when Pro League stopped and there was a little bit
Yeah,
of uncertainty in the Korean scene, and
in
then Jin Air
2016.
stepped up. Yeah, and they invested a lot into SC2 back then, which was really cool.
Yeah.
So now we have another
Was
SSL
that?
again,
Yeah.
totally not confusing.
Was there one for Brute War? From what I can remember,
Yes, yes, there
there
was.
was one as well.
Yeah,
Not
so you
not
remember?
affiliated with Spo TV either, if I
Mhm.
remember correctly.
There you go. You remember. You remember. Uh, but yeah. So because there used to be these Africa TV show matches, but because they rebranded now, I believe it's still casted by the same people and organized by the same people, but now just rebranded to Supers,
Yeah.
um, with a 7, but there's still an S at the
Yeah.
end. So
Super Sevens?
is it?
Because
Wait,
it's
yeah. Is it
best of
called?
sevens.
Ah, there you go. Oh my god, you cracked the
You
code.
got there. You got there, guys.
I had no
We
idea. I just,
figured
I
it
just,
out.
I just thought it was supers. I was like, why is there a seven? Okay, super sevens. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Oh my god, we're learning. Beautiful. Um, but yeah. So I believe it is casted on the Soup platform as well. So it's all on Soup. It's all beautiful.
Yep.
And we
Looking
had
it
a
up.
best seven between Gumiho and DRG.
Indeed, we did. DRG, a player who I feel like we've been seeing a lot less of in
Hmm.
2024. Whereas on the other hand, Gumio, somebody who we've been seeing quite a lot more of in 2024.
Yeah, which is why this result was crazy. Um, I guess we'll touch on DRG a little bit more later because I think he's going to be featured in another event. But I was really not. I was really scared because we haven't seen specifically much DRG over the past month or two. Basically, like in the lead up to EWC, DRG he was a little bit more active in online tournaments and he was doing his best, of course, to qualify for EWC. He wasn't able to though, and afterwards, or even around that era, for the past month or two he's barely been competing and I was a little bit scared that he was going to pull a patience on us and just retire, right? Retire and step away and just quietly,
Mhm.
step back from the scene. But no, he suddenly shows up in this and takes down Gumiho in a best of seven, which is crazy.
Yeah.
Like that's really good.
4-2 as well. It wasn't a series that went all the way to the ace match. That was
Mhm.
Gumiho definitely fought back, but still a fairly dominant showing from DRG. Which in hindsight, yeah, he was kind of well known for his ZVT specifically. There were definitely moments in Legacy of the Void even where even if we did have players like Dark and players like Rogue and Solar at the top of the KR scene,
Mhm.
DRG would still be able to, at least in ZVT, have a claim to being the best player.
Yeah, I mean it's impressive. It's really cool. It's really impressive to see DRG bring down Gumiho. Like this is a Gumiho that's in form, and I again I just assumed that maybe DRG had retired, but clearly not. Clearly not retired. Clearly in form as well. To bring down Gumiho is crazy, and it makes me more hopeful now. Like now I'm not as anxious about the state of
Yeah,
DRG
he
and
won't just
this.
leave us. Yeah.
Yeah, he's not
The
just gonna leave.
abandonment issues aren't gonna. Uh,
Exactly. He's like, he left to go and get a packet of cigarettes, and he never came back. Uh-huh. So yeah, this
quietly
does
joined
give
the
me some.
military. Yeah,
This
doing
does
some
give me
different
hope. It does give me
installations.
hope
Yeah, hopefully we'll
for
be able to
sure.
see a lot more of him because he does have a rather unique style. I would
Mhm,
say, obviously, his. I keep mentioning his CVT, but yeah, there was a brief moment in I want to say 2019, 2020, where Mutalists were not in favor at all unless your name was DRG and unless you were playing in a CVT. He was one of those few players who would still whip him out consistently.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And now it's back. We'll talk about that later.
Oh yeah.
But that's nice, alluding to something a little bit different. But yeah, really cool to see DIG make his return. Shout out to Soup, of course, or Super Sevens. Cut.
Wait,
The
Soup.
show match
Okay, so
series.
Soup is the
Uh-huh.
organizer and the sponsor and the platform that's been streamed on.
Yes. Yes.
Super Sevens is the name of the tournament, and it's
Yes. Yeah. You go.
Super Seven because they are best of sevens on Soup in
Yaku,
Soup.
you're basically Sherlock Holmes. You're crazy. The deduction.
Yeah, we
The
cracked it.
deductions. Let's go. Let's go. I could have done it without you. Uh, but yeah, with that, that wraps up the initial show match. And following that, we have a pretty big topic, a pretty big event that happened over the weekend, which you also casted day one of. And I'm sure tuned
Yes,
into a little bit of the other days as well. WTL.
indeed. There were a lot of delays towards the end of the group stage and after the group stage as well. Before we got into the playoffs, there were quite a number of delays due to other events potentially clashing with them. But finally, we had our playoffs come down. We've had our result. We have crowned our champions, who honestly feel like a long time coming. But oh boy,
Mhm,
did they have a little bit of a tough did they have a little bit of a tough journey to those
mhm,
finals? I mean, the finals themselves were a little bit one
mhm.
sided, but the
Yeah.
semifinals, ooh, that was close.
100%. If you're listening right now, if you missed out on watching WTL, we casted all of it. It's all on the channel. It's all on YouTube. It's all on Twitch. I recommend the VODs. There were some amazing matches. Like I know that EWC had some of the best StarCraft of the year was at EWC, but likewise WTL did live up to it as well. And I mean, the TL, the Clem hype train was insane. Like it was just an incredible performance, not just from Clem, but from like so many players over the course of the weekend, and it was just such an intense weekend of StarCraft. We had back to back like. I think we had like a 15-hour cast. We had on Sunday. It was 15 hours of WTL. It was crazy.
Oh yeah. Yeah, like you mentioned, it was insane. It was a very long run, and unfortunately for Team Liquid, I think that that did end up the length of that run did kind of end up uh impacting them towards the end there. But
Mhm.
regardless, that was still a really hype showing for them. Basilisk versus Team Liquid, or I'm not sure if we want to go into some of the other matches before we get into that. Actually,
Yeah. It all started with Platinum RH versus Psystorm Na'Vi. And I mean, a shout out to Platinum RH for going as far as they did in the round robin stage. But a lot of these bigger teams, a lot of these teams in the playoffs, they have these like big star players, right? They have some of the best players in the world. And Platinum Heroes, they went up against one of them early on. Kelzer and Geralt,
yeah,
they went 1-1. They knocked each other out. And Max Pax, he showcased, of course, why he is the ace of his team.
yeah, they started off with a bit of a pretty close matchup between two players who we would expect to be fairly close, maybe favoring Kelzer a little bit more, but after Geralt kind of got knocked down, Psystorm Navi decided they weren't playing around anymore. No more risks. They had to unleash this secret weapon. Well, I'm not sure how secret he's still kind of a secret. Nobody knows what he looks like, but yeah,
Uh
they
huh.
had to unleash their ultimate weapon earlier than I think they were hoping to. And Max Vex came in and kind of did an all kill, but also kind of didn't. I mean, he never played against Kelza, so by definition, it can't really be an all kill. But yeah, he didn't drop a single map in that series against Platinum R8. But unfortunately, did end up falling to Team Liquid, or specifically falling to Clem in the next round, who got his all kill.
Yeah, I remember for the interview leading into Psystorm versus Platinum, I think Tassad was talking about Goblin, preparing
Hmm.
for Max Packs, and Goblin he had his go at Max Packs. Goblin he had some interesting all ins that he tried on Max Packs, but as it usually is in these PvPs, Max Packs' defensive prowess is insane. He survived Goblin again, and again, and yeah, did take the series in the end. So it was rough for Platinum Heroes to go up against any of these bigger teams, but shout out to them for going as far as they did. As you mentioned right afterwards, was the revelation of Clem. And
Hmm.
now coming into this second series, it was a little bit ambiguous because Clem had just gotten back from Greece. Clem had just spent a week out, on the
And he
beach,
even
right?
yeah,
Soaking in the getting some
he,
vitamin D.
yeah. He even said himself in the post game interview he was kind of
Mhm.
nervous coming into this because he wasn't sure
Yeah.
what his form was looking like. He just wasn't really practicing because he was on vacation, but
Mhm.
yeah, it was still a surprising result regardless to get not only get this all kill but also 2-0 max packs and then get another kill on max packs.
Yeah, he 3-0'd Max Packs. I like this
Yeah,
final series.
that's right.
Initially what was impressive between Clem and Spirit, of course, Clem, he even admitted himself that his weakest matchup is TVT. He was a little bit concerned about it. Spirit, he stepped in, but alas, Clem was still looking so well refined against Spirit. And the crazy thing about Clem versus Max Packs is that Clem, he didn't look like he broke a sweat. It wasn't just a 3-0, but the games themselves, like Clem was looking very, very dominant.
Oh yeah. I think I remember what game the Oceanborn game against Max Packs was pretty close, but in the end was still able to clutch it out. And then after that, yeah, it was pretty much smooth sailing for Team Liquid
Yeah, it was really
or
strong
Clem.
performance out of. Yeah, really strong performance out of Clem. It also put aside some of the doubters, right? Like I'm sure there's a lot of people that are like, oh, Clem, he won EWC, but you know who wasn't there? Max Pax wasn't there, and Max Pax is like the best Protoss in Europe. Maybe the best Protoss player in the world. I mean, Hero still looked amazing at EWC, but there's always like that little seed of doubt that's like, oh, like what if Max Pax was there? What if Max Pax could compete? And then Clem 3-0s him.
Yeah,
It's like clearly wouldn't have made a difference. Like
three
Max Pax, if he even if he was at EWC, like Clem is clearly like looking so good.
3 owed him, and there was no ping difference this time, as there were a couple of
Mhm,
people who were wondering about that. Clem versus Max Pax when Clem was in Korea, but at this
mhm.
time, equal ping, Clem got that 3-0.
Oh yeah, and especially seeing this 3-0 as well. This gave me so much nostalgia and flashbacks
Mm-hmm.
to 2 seasons ago. I don't know if you remember, but it was the WTO playoffs like a week after I am Katowice with Oliveira on
Oliveira,
Kaizi.
yep.
Yes. This is so similar to that, where Oliveira had just won I am Katowice, and you've got all these people being like, "Oh, is Oliveira actually good? Like, is he actually in form? Was it a fluke? Like, how good is he?" And then he carries Kaizi Gaming throughout the WTO playoffs, and then they make it, I believe, to the finals, where eventually they fall, and Oliveira even speaks out about it, saying that he had just run out of steam and run out of stamina towards the end, where he was just so tired after such a long weekend of StarCraft that he was just tapped out, like he just couldn't keep
Yeah,
going.
pretty much. Pretty much. And that was how Dragon Phoenix Gaming won their third WTL in a row.
You're never gonna like let up on them. You're like being shit, DKZ, papi. Yeah.
They're the Golden
True.
State Warriors of WTL.
My
Well, now they're
God.
Weibo Gaming, so. I mean, they haven't won in a while, but still. Those initial few left an impression
Mhm.
on me.
There you go. There you go. So it was very similar to the Oliveira performance. But then of course we got into game of day number 2. We had Clem or Team Liquid
Mhm.
versus Shopify. What I appreciated about this though is if you remember we were talking about how I mentioned how like Clem is his weakest matchup is TVT and maybe I was a little bit or he was a little bit concerned about it. I was concerned as well, but it was really cool to see his team step up. Skills may have had a hard time against Bjorn, and Bjorn, I feel like, would have posed a threat, but Bjorn initially didn't even get to face off against Clem because Cure shut him down. And it was really cool to see that some people were memeing in the chat being like, oh, Clem, he's like just carrying Team Liquid. Like it is a team effort, and even Cure like stepped in, at least in
Yeah.
this series as well, to help out.
Yeah, it's the T in Team Liquid. It's. I screwed up. I was gonna say the T in TL stands
Uh-huh.
for team.
It's a I, don't- I saw where you were going
I
with
blew
it.
the
It's
punchline.
all good. It's all
What's it
good.
called? Pre-punchline,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
premature punchline. That's yeah,
We're all sometimes a little bit premature. It's okay, Yak.
yeah.
It's okay. That happens to the best of us. Uh, but regardless, yeah, a really strong performance out of Clem. He was able to bring down Harsum, Lambert, and Bjorn as well. Cure versus Bjorn was a little fun as well because if I remember correctly, I believe Cure did open. I think it was 2x Reaper. I think he 2x Reaper Bjorn. I don't know, he
Yeah,
sniped the hell out of him. If I recall correctly, it was either that or it was the other way around, and Beyond 2 actually would Cure, but I'm pretty sure it was Cure that 2 actually would Beyond. But last year, he was able to bring Beyond down. Again, support Clem. Clem eventually had his game against Beyond anyway, and yeah, Clem's
yeah,
still looking solid, still showing, why he's the best in the world.
pretty much. And then we had a very similar story in Team Liquid versus Weibo Gaming, where it was
Hmm.
kick it off with a TBT, Oliveira versus Cure, and they both 1-1'd each other, which meant that Clem didn't have to play a TBT or another
Hmm.
TBT that evening. So
Yeah.
that definitely helped out. Skillus really popping in this time, taking out Jesha. It was a 1-1, but again, eliminated another player uh, in Weibo Gaming. And then
Yeah,
finally, it all came down to Clem v Hero.
this was like another kind of like team showing here where you have Cure and Skillus doing their part. Cure again dealing with the Terran opponents as well to make sure that Clem wouldn't have been tested in that kind of format or in that kind of setup. And what was so hype about this series as well is, remember, Friday night Clem 3-0'd Max Packs, Saturday night Clem 3-0's Hero. Like Clem
Yep.
just like having his way with the top two Protoss players in the world and not showing any signs of weakness there. Like that was what was impressive.
TVP. We're back.
Yeah, clearly a matchup that Clem is very confident in. Clearly, like he has the best EVP in the world. If he can 3-0 Hero and Max Packs, I mean, what more is there? Like what more could you ask for?
Patience.
True, true. Oh my god. And that led into the grand finals, of course, the final day of WTL with Bassus versus Team Liquid. And 100%, I would say this was the best series of the playoffs.
Yeah, it was the closest series of the playoff, bar none. It was the only one that actually got into the ace match. It was the only one where both teams initially eliminated everybody, and then they had to bring in a couple of revives.
Mm-hmm.
Or they actually had to bring in 2 revives because of how the because of how the format works. And man, I was pretty hyped coming into this. I saw Serral versus Cure specifically. I was very hyped when I saw that Cure was able to take a game off of Serral. I was like,
Uh,
oh, are we back?
mm-hmm.
And then I was worried a little bit going into the second series where we saw Clem 2-0 Showtime. I thought, oh, well, I guess this is going to be potentially another full-on Team Liquid stomp. But then Raynor came in. Raynor came in, and I would say he was absolutely MVP for Team Basilisk coming into this. Not only having a very close back and forth with Clem, where he was able to fully eliminate Clem from the rest of the match, but he also had a very dominant showing against Skillus as well.
Oh yeah, definitely. Like this was a wild night. This this is a wild night of soccer. Like winding it back a little bit. Okay, so again, if you miss out on the vods, if you miss out on watching it live, watch the vods, Pappy. Watch the vods. I highly recommend. If you only have time to watch one series, watch the semifinals. Not even the grand. We'll
Well,
get to the grand finals later. Not even the grand finals. Watch the semis. It was
yeah.
insane.
Well, I mean, if you only have time to watch one series, you probably won't be able to watch even the full semifinals.
True. It was a long semis. It was like 3 or 4 hours. It was crazy. Um, but when it comes to the matches themselves, Cure was an animal. I don't know if you remember, but the way that Cure defeated Cyril was he cheesed the hell out of
He
him and went
prox, yeah.
proxy. Yeah, he went proxy 3x. It was wild. And Cure was able to cheese the hell out of Cyril. What I special shout out to Showtime. Again, if you missed out on the games, even though Clem 2-0 Showtime, I would say Showtime looked better than Max Packs and
Ooh.
Hero. He like Showtime, those games were so close. Clem was behind multiple times on Ghost Shiver and even on Golden Aura as well. Those are some scrappy games. And out of all the TVPs that we saw over the weekend, Showtime and Clem, it really did live up to the hype, and it was the most competitive and the most vulnerable that we even saw Clem against Protoss the entire weekend. So,
There we go.
um, yeah, I think it was just a really good showing, and yeah, it definitely puts some respect on the name. Just because I think when people think of Protoss, they think of Hero and Max Packs, right? I mean, they are number one and number two, and Showtime is often forgotten. But yeah, he looked very
Well, I mean,
strong
even
against Clem.
Team Basilisk, right? He's kind of seen
Mhm.
as. I mean, they are big Basilisks. It is Basilisk plus Showtime, but a lot of people, I think, weren't really expecting Showtime to, being on the same team as someone like Cyril and Raynor to
Mhm.
necessarily be able to shine as much. But, again, like you said, even though he wasn't able to take a map off of Clem here, I don't think we can really hold out against him. It is Clem that we're talking about, and he still looked incredibly close.
Oh yeah, exactly. And I think that's something that people miss out on if they don't watch the games. If they just, it isn't uncommon for people to, even ourselves, even to just like look at results on Wikipedia and just be like, oh okay, yeah, that makes sense. These matches occurred, and that's about what we expect. But again, Showtime looked very impressive and definitely got my attention in this series versus Clem, but alas, did go the way of Clem. Then we had Raynor's matches, and Raynor's matches are fascinating because obviously, as you can see on the screen here, Clem did get his revenge and he adjusted to Raynor, but Raynor's initial 2-0 was shocking. It was really jarring to see Clem look a little bit more vulnerable. And when it comes to the game specifically, Raynor,
Looked
he
a little bit
was
lost.
taking yeah, Raynor, he was taking a very different approach. Um, so Raynor, he was hyper aggressive, hyper cheesy on Post Youth and Crimson Court. He had very specialized builds. He had an all in on Crimson Court, which Clem he took a little bit too long to scout. Likewise on Post Youth as well, we had Raynor. Yeah, just be very aggressive, very unlike Serral. For example, Serral, he's standard, he's macro, he takes things a little bit slower. But with the high pace of Raynor, again, it was just really jarring, and it clearly took Clem a little bit to adjust to Raynor.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Raynor himself also teased it a little bit. Even before the match, he kind of teased it on stream and said, "Hey, I've been cooking.
Uh-huh.
I have something prepared." And people were like, "Ooh, what's this going to be?" And we saw it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it was on Post Truth where he went two base muta, where he like rushed gases early on, going to muta play, and like that was like the what everyone was talking about after the event was muta making a resurgence in ZVT because Raynor he used muta on Post Youth, and then in the rematch he went muta as well. Even on some of the games that he lost, he went muta, and the ones that he won as well, and he looked really impressive. He was literally just pulling Clem apart. Clem just couldn't keep up with the speed or the multitasking of Raynor, and that's how Clem ended up falling outside of the all-ins that occurred like on Crimson Court, for example, or some of these other maps. But yeah, we had Raynor just taking a different approach, an approach that a lot of people just assumed wasn't viable anymore. Like Lingbane Muta hasn't been meta in a very long time.
Yeah. It used to be conventional wisdom, and then Legacy of the Void kind of messed that up quite a bit. But
Mhm,
now Raynor's showing us how to make it work. You know, you just gotta go fast. You just gotta multitask. You gotta be very aggressive.
mhm.
Just gotta
Yeah, and
hit and keep hitting.
just go all in, Bobby. Send it, send it. And I think that this was a really good showing for Raynor because I know there are some people that joke about it, but a lot of people, they kind of rag on Raynor a little bit, right? It's like when it comes to when he underperforms in tournaments, just because there are so many high expectations for him, and that was also kind of the case with EWC, where everyone was talking about Hero and Serral and Clem, and less so Raynor, even though he was the only player to take maps off of Clem at EWC. But yeah, despite Raynor not having as deep of a run that he wanted, at least here he proves to everyone like, hey, like Raynor is definitely one of the best players in the world. He's definitely world class, and he's literally the only one that's been able to take maps off of Clem throughout the past couple of weeks.
Yeah, literally the only one.
Yeah, the only one. It's great. I think it was Wax Angel that was like tweeting about it, how Clem had not lost a single map since his series versus Raynor in EWC, and then again Raynor defeats him here at WTL. And I do think it's a style of clashes, definitely. Sorry, clash of styles even. Just because Raynor approaches the matchup so differently than everyone else. And I don't know if it necessarily means that like he's necessarily better than Clem, because I mean, if you look at these matches, they were tied, right? Like Clem
Yeah,
won 3 times and Raynor won 3 times. So clearly they're very competitive with each other, which is really exciting because it shows that like clearly there's someone that can compete against Clem. You know, Clem isn't just like one league above everyone else, right?
yeah. It's always exciting to see. It's always neat. It's always cool to see when we have that one specific. I mean, this is going to be a rivalry that I think
Hmm.
people were expecting for a very long time. That's finally coming into fruition. I mean, Clem and Raynor, they are the same age. They both started competing at around the same time, competing in a lot of those like Alpha X Junior Cups, and then finally in 2018, when they were old enough to compete in WCS, Raynor just shot up super quickly, and it took Clem a little bit longer to get that big breakout moment. But finally,
Hmm.
after last year, I would say it started coming into fruition in 2022, but 2023 specifically, ESL Masters Winter 2023, where Clem won it. That was
Hmm.
when it really started coming together, and I've been enjoying watching Reigner versus Clem these past couple of weeks, and just how close and intense their series against each other have been.
Mhm. Yeah, and honestly, them just more entertaining as well than Clem versus Cyril, for example. They just have such a different
Yeah,
dynamic. And like just Clem versus Reigner, it's so chaotic, it's so intense, and it's just so fun and entertaining to watch and behold. So I do recommend watching
they
all those
are.
games.
Yeah, I mean they're just two extremely high APM, super fast players
Yeah.
going against each other. And it's like I can't keep up with all of this, but
Mhm.
I'm in awe,
For,
is what I'm saying. It's like, yeah,
for sure, definitely, and that was definitely like the two players to pay attention to in that series in the semifinals. That led into the ace match and the grand finals as well. And I think this was really important, just because I do think that a lot of people's attention were focusing on Reigner and Clem, and people being like, "Are these like the two best players in the world? Like, is that what's happening right now?" And I do think Reigner
answers
is really
yes.
good, really strong. And clearly Reigner has uh arguably the best ZVT in the world right now. But when it comes to everything else, and when it comes to all things Zerg, Cyril is still someone that you have to respect. And there's a reason why Cyril was the runner-up at EWC. There's a reason why Cyril looked like unstoppable in that event, and why he looked unstoppable here in the finals, where he like honestly, these games didn't even look close. Cyril versus Vitality was because of how dominant it was a little bit more dull. But he stomped Ryung, Maru, and Solar. It was crazy just how good Cyril was looking.
Yeah. I have the hot take of Reigner. I want Reigner to be the best Zerg in the world, but I think the results really do dispute that very strongly right now.
Mhm.
Reigner, he's the best player versus Clem, and he is an amazing
Yeah.
player in his own right, but Cyril is just so much more well rounded. And he
Mhm.
proved that versus Vitality.
For sure, for sure. It was a very strong showing by Cyril, and as I mentioned, like because that the finals wasn't as exciting. It was a little bit more one note. But still some good matches. Don't get me wrong, and still like a good showing by Cyril. But again, it wasn't as competitive as Basilisk versus Team Liquid. So that's also
Yeah.
why I do mention that if you could only watch one series, it should be the semifinals. It was just very clutch, and ideally
But
that would have been the finals as well. But yeah,
yeah, but hey, it's still notable because this is actually the first time that Basilisk has won WTL. It's something that I
true.
think a lot of us were expecting. They
Mhm.
first competed in 2023, was it?
Yep.
2023 winter, I believe it was.
Yep.
No, summer. No, winter. Yeah, yeah.
Winter. Yeah.
And there were a lot of eyes on them, but for whatever reason, oh wait, I say for whatever reason. The reason was Solar. They weren't
Mhm.
able to. Solar being the MVP of. Th- Wait, no, my timeline is wait. Hold on, because there were two
It was
seasons
summer.
that
Yeah, it was summer.
it was summer. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It was
Yes, yes,
2023 summer.
yes.
It was 2022 winter was the one that bled into 2023. Okay, there we
Yes,
go. It
yes,
was
yes, yeah. I'm
2023
with you.
summer that
Yes.
Basilisk debuted, and they had a very strong
Yes.
showing. But in that specific season, uh, they kind of met their match in the end versus On-Site Gaming, which was what Vitality used to be. Solar
Mhm.
specifically popped off, and then in winter, they faced off against Clem, who was
Yes.
yeah, even
Atlanta.
more arguably. I would say not necessarily as in form as
Mhm.
he is now. I think Clem right now is way, way more of a better player than Clem a year ago, or
Mhm.
even the beginning of this year. But I think Cyril was, I think, had COVID or something when he played his matches, and Raynor also hadn't quite figured out the solution to the Clem problem yet.
Mhm.
So Team Liquid ended up beating them in the semifinals, and then we had a grand finals of Onsite versus Team Liquid. So yeah, Basilisk finally have won their team league. And I tell you what the actual difference is. I've mentioned what some of the differences are. The most important difference this time, they have Showtime.
True. There you go. I feel so bad for Trigger. Trigger didn't play at all.
Yeah, he wasn't
He
able to play
he
in the playoffs.
he tweeted
He
he
was in a
tweeted
plane.
afterwards. Yeah, he tweeted afterwards, and he was like, I guys, I carried the team." Like he was having fun with it. Was having fun with with his team winning, of course. And unfortunately, Trigger wasn't a part of these matches. But yeah, as you mentioned, right, it was the
He
beginning of
was coming back from Korea,
2023.
right?
I think so. I think so.
Yeah.
But Solar was. Oh wait, no, no, Trigger was there. He was in the
Yeah,
Zoom
Trigger
calls.
was
Like,
there.
yeah, we could see him on cams. Um,
From a
but I think
plane.
it was.
That's ooh. With the plane Wi-Fi. That's
There you
impressive.
go. But yeah, it was Solar to stop them. It was Clem to stop them the season after. Like, despite Basilisk arguably having the strongest team and having the best player in the world, they were denied their win until now. Finally 3 seasons later. So
Third time's
congratulations
the
to
charm.
Basilisk. Their time is the charm. And yeah, I do really recommend watching these matches. I do think it's a really good sequel to EWC as well, like with how hype and how insane
Or
EWC
epilogue.
was. Yeah, epilogue is maybe, yeah, a good word to use here, because it was great to see like all those players in the aftermath and how they still look in form, and maybe some potential matches that we missed out on at EWC. So yeah, it was just really fitting, honestly, really fitting way to end the season, and to wrap up this kind of chapter of StarCraft.
Yeah, I have to agree. We still the judges or over at SC Boy are still deliberating, but yeah, I cannot wait to see their 10 best celebration awards this time once again because that was some pop-offs.
Mm-hmm. True. We did have some nice pop-offs, whether it's like drinking coffee, or I remember Harstem and Kelzer. They had their own celebrations as well, and yeah, we'll see what comes from those awards that they will give out at the end in the coming weeks, I'm sure. But with that, that wraps up WTL. Again, it was a very long season. We don't know if there's going to be another. There are rumors that there will be, but they're merely rumors. So I hope that hope we do get to see another season of World Team League.
Yeah. Honestly, I would be surprised if we didn't. I mean, I feel like
Mhm.
WTL and SC Boy specifically, they are pretty good at securing funding, whether it's by getting sponsors with Auto. I still remember Autofull and Pew Pew after all this time. I say after all this time. It's been a week since the last WTL match, but
Mhm.
yeah, whether it's been through sponsors, whether it's been through the WTL gift box, or even just their Taobao page, I think some of the proceeds from purchases there go to funding WTL and the other SC Boy events. So
Mhm.
I would be surprised if WTL doesn't come back in some form for winter.
Oh yeah, I'm sure it will. I'm sure it will. I know it's quite successful for them. They get a lot of viewership. They get a lot of sponsors, of course, and they've been running it for a long time. So I'm sure we'll see some more WTL in the near future. But until then, that does wrap up WTL. Now we can go over another big event that occurred this weekend. It
Yes.
was the House Galactic Battle.
Yes, which is like Code for Giants, but in Poland and also offline, notably. And
Uh,
also not as often. It doesn't
mhm.
happen as often, I suppose, or specifically the galactic battle itself doesn't happen as often as the bi-weeklies.
It's kind of like Code for Giants Cup, except not really at all. Yeah.
Yeah, if you think about it.
Yeah. Yeah, damn. But as you mentioned, it is an offline event happening in Poland, and we've been hosting it and casting it here on the channel for the past couple of iterations, for the past year. Basically crowning the best player in Poland, and
The
it
new
was a
King
pretty
of
big
Poland,
event.
if you will.
Yeah, the King of Poland, if you will. And we did have some ex Kings of Poland rock up here. Of course, the initial House Galactic Battle champion was Spirit for number one. He was the original champion. Number two was Christianer. And here, number three, we did see them face off against each other. Now, as we got into this event, it was a long event. This was, I think, 13 hours. We were live all day
Um,
on Saturday. It was
uh, here's producer. Spirit actually didn't win a house open cup, but House Galactic
oh, did he
battle.
win
Sorry,
the?
he he
Did he
he
win
was
the
he
E
was
spot?
third. He was
It was
third
E-Spot,
in
yeah.
the
Ah,
first House Galactic battle. Maybe it was this spot. Yeah,
that's it. That's it.
it was Lazar who
So
won the first one.
there you go. So it was Laser who won, or Laser won the first one. It was a Spirit who won the eSport events, not House Galactic Battle. But yeah, they were all able to get
Well,
out here.
yeah.
Yeah, the downside though, that we
Yep.
did find out on the day is that both Alazer and Snogstar were actually playing in a Stormgate tournament, which is why they didn't travel and why they weren't a part of this offline event.
Yeah. Yeah, so a couple of notable big names there, unfortunately, but hey, still was a fairly competitive event regardless. I do just think that the Polish region and the Polish scene specifically has just gotten so much better in the past 2 years or so.
Mhm.
And it was, yeah,
Yeah, it was a really big event, and again, it would have been fun to have seen a laser there for a rematch. Again, a laser was the most recent runner-up of House Galactic Battle number 2. A laser did lose to Christiana, so it would have been really cool to have seen them face off again. Christiana has been a player that has been improving a lot over the past year and has been really breaking into the top four Protoss in Europe. I think we confirmed that I think he's top four on a Ligulac, just behind Skillus. So Christianity has been really leveling up, really improving a lot, and I mean that all came to fruition last House Galactic Battle. This one he didn't get a rematch against a laser, but he instead went up mainly against Spirit.
yeah. I mean, he played through a lot of PvP, so I can tell you that. But Spirit definitely was his kryptonite.
Mhm.
He was his Kingslayer.
Yeah, and it was really cool to see Spirit here because it was last House Galactic Battle where Spirit didn't play. Spirit did not compete. It was Spirit's mother's birthday, so he was spending the weekend with his family. He wasn't able to make it to the
Should have
event
brought
itself,
them to the
so
land.
he should have. It should have been his present to his mother, Papi. Aye, aye, aye.
Yeah,
But
deliver her
because of
the
that,
trophy at the end. Be like,
yeah,
won this for you,
exactly.
mom.
And because of that, that was always the big question, right? For the last House Clash battle, it's like, oh, Cristiano, he's dubbed the best player in Poland. He defeated Laser. That's a really big feat. Laser is the best Zerg player in Poland, but Spirit wasn't there. So it's like, like what could have been, right? It's kind of like what we spoke about earlier with like Max Pax not being at EWC, where we kind of had a resolution to that. But here, we saw, but for House, like there was no Spirit. So thankfully, he was here for the next
Yeah,
iteration, and we did eventually see that come out.
yeah. You know what's going to be in the next one? And the next one is going to be we'll have Spirit and we'll have a laser, but we won't have Christiana.
Yeah,
That's
it's just
just that seems to be the curse of in
uh-huh.
Poland right now.
Is it like a rule of the universe where the trifecta they cannot be in the same place at once, otherwise like the universe implodes? Like this,
Yeah,
like
they're too powerful. The
they
Polish boys.
exactly. They can't congregate, otherwise it's the end of the world. So for whatever reason, they're being kept apart. And yeah, Spirit he did look very strong. The only player to make Spirit bleed was Art. We were lucky enough to cover that series, and Art did look very impressive. Fun fact: I believe this was the first house that Art has been to. Art hadn't really traveled much before, and even though he's been
And
around for a long
yeah,
time,
and he was outside of Poland for quite a while while these were
true.
going on. So
He was. So I believe this was his first house galactic battle, and he did quite well for himself. Made it all the way to top 3, even taking down Geralt.
yeah, that's honestly more surprising to me than Art taking a map off of Spirit here.
Mm.
Geralt, who in a way is kind of the captain of Storm Navi, uh, has been. I would say before Christiana, he was kind of who a lot of us were looking at to be the top Protoss player, at least in Poland, and if
Mhm.
not in that top four of EU.
Yeah, we were all kind of looking at Art to like improve and skyrocket ahead, and he did improve. He did look quite good, but then he kind of stepped away from the game a little bit, took a bit of a break. He wasn't as active for a while, but now he's back. Now he's back in full force, and clearly a force to be reckoned with as well. I don't know what it is, but the Polish region does provide a lot of Protoss players, and they're all really good. Art, Geralt,
I
and
blame
Christiana,
Mana.
and Mana. Yeah, Mana as well. Like they're
Back
all
in my head, Mana.
they're all
He's
good.
kind, yeah, he's kind of the granddaddy of
Mhm.
Poland in a way.
Oh, we didn't get to talk
Yeah,
about it. Yeah, Mana, he was also playing at WTL.
he was. He was in a way kind of the captain of Team Liquid or TL. Your
Mhm.
representative. He spoke. he spoke in the interviews. He had some very solid interviews. I loved when he mentioned that, yo, there were doubters on Clem because of his TBT, but I tell you, we've been prepping him.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. It meant that I think the
Exactly.
line was he may not have played TVT at EWC, but that means that he's been
Yeah.
been able to hide his TVT, right? For WTL. But what I was referring to is that Mana, he was playing show matches. He was a part of the
True.
pre-show.
Oh, I forgot. Yes, that's what
Yeah.
now I forget. Yes, we had the main event of WTL, but we had the actual true event of WTL,
Mhm.
the crowning of the new Chicken Lord.
Yeah, yeah. The Lord of the Chickens. Let's go. So we're winding it back a little bit here. It's a little bit of a tangent. But for those who didn't watch WTL, typically there are show matches ahead of time. Before each day of playoffs. I think last time we had 2v2s. I think Crank and Rotterdam, they were playing 2v2s against F91 and Chassé. And before that, there were some other show matches as well. Just typically just like a fun way to play and or a fun way to just start the broadcast and start the event. This time we had a bracket constructed of best of threes, where the loser advances on into the next round. Not the winner, but the loser advances on. And they didn't play in SC2, they played in the SC Evo mod.
Yes, and it was specifically it had to be Brute War versus SC2, and both players would at least play one round in Brute War and one round in SC2. And if we got to the ace match, then it was free for all in a way. They could just choose amongst themselves. And yeah, for some reason, if you win your match, you're safe. If you lose your match, you advance. And if you lose it all, you become the new Chicken Lord. Not to be confused with Chicken Man. And
Uh-huh.
we did crown a new Chicken Lord. It's fitting, I think, that our
Uh-huh.
Chicken Lord is also the Papa Duck Crank.
There you go. Exactly, exactly. Crank, of course, from Team Vitality, from previously Onside Gaming, from previously Axiom as well. He was a crowned the Chicken Lord and did famously lose all of his matches.
Yeah. He took maps,
Smoke.
but
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, he did. He did. He did. Did take maps. Did take maps. So shout out to Crank. We got a lot of
It,
love for him. For those, go on.
I was gonna say this is what happens when we don't have viewer requests anymore. Viewer
True,
strategy
true.
requests anymore.
Yes, he needs
For
someone
those, yeah,
to whisper sweet nothings into his ear to pick the
yeah,
strategies.
yeah. Yeah, well, that's all the context. I was gonna say for context, that used to be a big thing that Crank used to do, but I think you just explained it. Yeah.
Yeah. Kind. For those who don't know, here on the Cranky Ducklings, of course, we've been running events and casting for a very long time, for many, many, many years. When it comes to the origins of the Cranky Ducklings, some people don't know, but our name is derived a little bit as is a tribute to Crank.
Yeah.
That's why we're Cranky, for Crank himself, for the
Yeah.
ex-Korean pro.
Yeah. We all met in, funnily enough, we all met in his Twitch chats.
Yeah.
Well, most of us. Most of the OG members, anyway.
Yeah, most of the OG Cranky Ducklings, we all met in Crank's Twitch channel back in 2013, 2014, 2015, mainly around 2014, 2015. And yeah, we
I was a
all.
little bit later.
Okay. That's okay.
I was like 2016, 2017,
Okay, okay, okay.
2018.
Um, no, not that far. The
Yeah.
Ducklings were already
I
formed
was
by
like, yeah.
then.
I was like late 2016, early 2017.
But yeah, a lot of us did meet in Crank's Twitch channel back in the day. He used to stream in English. He used to stream in English, make a lot of content in English as well. But of course, things did occur, and he did make the ultimate decision to focus on the Korean scene, which made a lot of sense at the time, just because the future was a little bit more uncertain, and for whatever reason, back in the day, there was a lot of content creators in English and other languages, right? We had Emil for Poland. It wasn't
Hmm.
Wardy. Sorry, it wasn't indie back then. It was Emil. We had Baystray TV. We had Wardy. We had Horus. We had just all these other language casters and community figures, and a lot of content being made about the game, and community casters and coverage for all these online tournaments. But there wasn't a Korean one. I think there was kind of a reason for it. I think it was like discouraged. I think
Yeah,
yeah.
Yeah, it was discouraged. A lot of the pros were discouraged from making content by their team specifically.
Yeah.
Discouraged them from making content, and also, yeah, and also a lot of other. I'm trying to find my train of thought, and basically, I'm trying to say is that the pros and the people who were involved in StarCraft 2 were
Mhm.
discouraged from making content for it. And so a lot of other like content creators or RTS creators specifically just make content for Brute War.
hmm Yeah, and I remember Crank. He even spoke a little bit about it. I think he talked about how he was discussing this with some of the GSL casters,
Yeah.
because again, like it was typically reserved for only like professional casters,
Yep.
GSL, SSL, Pro League, and he was asking like
It
what they
was
thought about Crank potentially, casting on Twitch and stuff, and he was being told like, oh, like
it
there's not really much
that
like Korean interest in Twitch, and if you're gonna stream, you should
that
stream on Afrika and stuff like that.
yeah. Yeah, no, I was gonna say that was the other thing is that just Afrika has the monopoly
hmm
in Korea. Well,
Yeah.
more so now, or I guess now they're called Soup. Now they
Uh-huh.
have their monopoly in Korea, but yeah, even back then, there wasn't a lot of people, not a lot of viewership or Korean viewers on Twitch itself because they were mostly focused on Afrika, and then there was also, like you said, we had Castor Park and the oh god, they have a name. The three of them, they are called something that the name escapes me, but man, the trio of them, they
Uh-huh.
yeah mostly just focused on the professional, and by professional I mean the premier GSL and
Mhm,
SSL and Super Tournament back when we had Super Tournament and whatnot.
mhm,
And so when it came to a lot of these weeklies, and when it came to things like Oli Moly, like Leifang Cup, back when we had
mhm,
Leifang Cup and stuff like that, there wasn't much coverage in Korean specifically
mhm.
until Crank came in and did that.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And as you mentioned, like there wasn't really much perception that there would even be much interest in Korean viewers watching on Twitch. But Cranky put that to the test, right? He decided to focus on casting and doing content in Korean, and he fostered his own scene, his own community. Nowadays, he is kind of like the equivalent to like your Loco, or your Winter, or your Wardy in Korean, and he became quite successful. But this is a weird side tangent. But
Uh,
because of this, basically, his English speaking community that he had fostered for a number of years, we didn't really have Crank to go to anymore because he had decided to focus on Korean content instead, which was, I would say, I mean, probably the correct call to make because of how
yeah,
successful he eventually became. But it did mean that we didn't really have much else, didn't have anything to kind of rally behind. So we started making content ourselves. We started the Cranky Ducklings in honor of Crank, of course, and
mm,
history is history, right? We're here
yeah,
now.
yeah. We couldn't really go to Crank, so we came up with our own stuff, except for that one time Crank came to me on ladder, and I ended up humiliated in one of his videos.
uh,
Saying, well,
oh no, not like this.
that was a true thing that happened.
There you
You're
go.
doing
But
like
yeah, because
a weird challenge thing. I don't know. On
Mhm,
a fresh
mhm.
account on NA for some reason, and then well,
Smooch. It's fine. But because of that, like we have close ties with Crank. So whenever we see Crank,
yeah,
whenever it's always fun to interact with him whenever we can. It's always exciting whenever we're casting the same events. Like sometimes Crank is
mhm,
like joining a lobby to cast, and we happen to join as well, and like we exchange words, and Cranky has
yeah,
a very soft and fun place in our hearts, and yeah. So casting him and seeing him in the show matches was a lot of fun. It was very
yeah,
nostalgic. It was, yeah, it felt like the good old days.
yeah. And it wasn't like, and especially because it was the SC2 Evo mod as well,
Mhm.
which I predict that. I guess we can go into this a little bit later if we're going to be talking about it, but I think
Not talking about
probably
now.
is going to be okay. I was just going to say, I think that I was surprised at how much interest there was in the
Mhm,
SC2 Evo, specifically in the competitive side of it. I was
mhm,
surprised that there was this much interest in the SE2 Evo mod, and so eventually, I think it is going to become something that that will be. It will form its own metas. People will start to
mhm,
figure things out a little bit. But while we're still in the early
mhm,
days of competitive SE2 Evo, it's a little bit wilder, and yeah, reminds me again a little bit of those viewer requests,
For sure, for sure. It was
those
really,
challenges.
yeah, like I don't know if you've been able to watch much of SE Evo. We
A little
can
bit here
talk
and
about.
there. I saw the
Yeah,
first league, which uh, do we have it? Like, I just realized
yeah.
that that's also another topic coming up later online, so
No, yeah, yeah. I mean, we just wrapped up with
we should
House,
wrap up
so
with how.
now,
Okay, there we go.
yeah, yeah, yeah. We're wrapping up with House. You know, congratulations to Spirit for looking dominant and claiming his win over Cristiano, of course. And up next is the StarCraft Evolution League, which did begin last week. And again, we were just touching on at least the show matches between Mana,
Hmm.
Crank, F91, and Chausse. And I was curious, Yaku, if you've been watching much of it, what your
I
thoughts
watched a
are
bit of it.
on the mod.
First off, my thoughts on the mod is Protoss.
Uh-huh.
Oh, Protoss. No, I no, in seriousness, I both am enthused and also terrified of Darkons. Let me tell you that as
Hmm.
an S as not just an SC2 baby, but a Legacy and a Void baby. I never played Heart of Swarm. I never played Wings of Liberty. I played what there was one evening where Milk and Cookies and a bunch of other people from the clan invited me to like do custom games in SC2 in no sorry Brood War or StarCraft remastered, and that's my only experience with Brood War. I both
I would
love and
I
am
would like
terrified of Darkons.
I would like to correct that you also played some Brood War campaign on stream while being muted.
I I was hoping you would bring that up. I intentionally didn't bring that up.
Oh
And
no. Dark
yeah,
times, dark
that is the
times.
thing that happened. Where
um
I talked to myself for about half an hour, but yeah, in short, I like I both like and I'm also terrified of. I both like what I saw and I'm also terrified of actually playing it myself.
mm.
But also specifically for SC2 Evo, for SC2 Evolution League, I really like the format of how it goes.
Yeah,
How
yeah.
it's
So
always Brute War versus StarCraft 2.
yeah, yeah. So originally this was called the Hyperstar League. We casted the Hyperstar League a couple of weeks ago. And it was
I
kind of
remember that.
the first iteration of this, and it was a lot of fun. Of course, mainly sponsored by Hyper One. And then that turned into this. That in the end, Top, aka Kiwian, the Korean Terran player, he wanted to get involved. He helped boost the prize pool, and he was casting in Korean. And they rebranded the StarCraft Evolution League instead.
Hmm.
And yeah, it's been really fascinating watching the growth and the evolution of the
Yeah,
meta
I
and
get what
this
you're saying.
format. Yeah, there's been a couple of events. There was like a Korean event, if you remember. I think it was sponsored not by Soup, but by the other one, the Naver
Uh,
competitor.
Naver, yeah, the one that Gemini and Tasteless casted.
Yes, yes. So they hosted their own event, and it's been kind of permeating a little bit through the Korean scene, and yeah, it's been really fascinating. There were some really good matches, and I was not expecting the turnout that we had for this tournament. Looking at the bracket,
Yeah,
so for the other event for Hyperstar League, we had Homono, we had 3 Point, we had Psyarch. Like these are more regulars that I'm seeing time and time again. But I was shocked to see Shin. Shin came out of nowhere, and I mean, for a top SC2 player from the caliber of Shin to show up, that was yeah really exciting.
yeah, and I'm excited to see more of his. Hopefully, to see a bit more of his big brain plays in SC2
Mhm,
Evo because man, I do feel like with how a lot of formats work, with the fact that it is essentially a six race game,
mhm.
I do feel like somebody with the creativity of Shin can really be successful here.
Mhm.
I feel
Oh
like there's
yeah.
a lot of different combinations and strategies that you can pull out in SC2 Evo.
He, Yeah, like if you're maybe listening, and we should also explain a little bit. SC Evo is a new mod in StarCraft 2, which does kind of blend together Brood War and StarCraft 2 in a different way. I say in a different way because if you remember back in the day, there was Starbow. Like Starbow
Hmm.
was another mod in SC2 which had its own competitive scene for a while, had its own ladder for a while, but Starbow was different. What Starbow did was that they there was still only three races. There was Terran, Protoss, and Zerg. But what Starbird did was they
Mhm.
tried to incorporate
Combine
Brood
all
War,
the
yeah,
units.
Brood War ideas into SC2, and they were like hybrid races in a way, right?
Hmm.
For like a
It
hybrid Protoss, hybrid Terran, hybrid Zerg
Yep.
of both kind of iterations of the game.
Yeah. It was essentially, for instance, if you were playing Terran, you could build both Marauders and Firebats,
Mhm.
which now that I think about it, it makes me want to fire up Sarbo again and do a TV and do a TVZ with just Firebats and Marauders. But yeah, you could do that if you were playing Zerg. You could have Banelings and Scourges. You were playing Protoss. You could have Scouts and Phoenixes.
Yeah, so it was like an interesting take on things. And again, it had like its competitive scene for a while. But this is different. This is keeping SC2 races and brutal races separate. So it's not trying to
Hmm.
try too hard to like balance like the merging of the two. And on top of that, because of the rule that you mentioned, because they're always keeping it brutal versus SC2, that means it's a little bit easier to balance. I did
Yep.
hear from the creators that the game isn't actually really balanced for brutal versus brood war. Like it's a little bit imbalanced in that sense, but
Yeah.
they don't have to worry about it because they're never
Because
facing off against each other.
Darkons.
Yeah, sure.
I
But
don't
yeah,
know.
it's something that I have to worry about. They're just focusing on basically balancing like SC2 Terran against all of Brood War and like SC2 Zerg against all of Brood War as well. Like it's a little bit different and a little bit easier to balance because of that.
Yeah. I mean, it's still probably. Wait. Math. Wait. Okay, so you can have a TBT. TV. Yeah, yeah. So
Uh-huh.
it's still balancing for 9 possible matchups instead of wait. So let's and then
Uh-huh.
Okay,
Uh-huh.
guys, we lost the echo.
18. That's what I'm gonna
Uh-huh.
guess because I'm just gonna double it. It's probably not the correct equation. It's probably like
uh,
16 or 20. It's
it's
probably
fine. It's
not
fine.
in the same multiples, but yeah. Wait,
It's
is it?
fine.
Wait, okay, 17.
It's fine.
Yeah, yeah, so
No,
9 matchups. So
stay with us, yeah. Stay with us. But
math.
yeah, it's really fascinating mod, and it's a lot of fun. It's really refreshing as well. Personally, I've been having a really fun time watching and casting
Yeah,
all these matches, and for me,
and
it makes me want to play it. Not gonna lie,
yeah,
like it makes me very excited to
yeah.
indulge.
Which is what brings us to our next point: the show match between Light and somebody, me potentially, if we can't get anyone else. I'm willing to show match you and see evil. Is all I'm
Oh
saying.
no! Oh no!
Probably
Oh,
find
you just want to
somebody.
make.
We should probably find somebody who hasn't been in a 14 game losing streak these
Oh
past few
no!
days.
Oh no! It's okay, Yago. It's okay. They can't hurt you. Uh, but yeah, it's been really fascinating and really interesting. For those that are curious, the brutal races they aren't carbon copy brood war. They aren't the carbon copy of the brood war iteration. They are
They
balanced in
did
their
have to
own
do
unique
a
way.
yeah.
Yeah, so and they constantly patch and update it as well. They're adjusting, the duration of spells and the power of units and all that stuff. Like they're balancing it on a more active basis and making new maps as well. And yeah, it's been a really fascinating
Yes.
to actually see it all come
That
together.
yeah, that was the other thing that really s- kind of surprised me when I peeked into the tournament is when I saw, wait a minute,
Mhm,
what is this map? That's on the map pool. Is
mhm,
this a Brute War map? And kind of some of these maps kind of were
mhm,
inspired by some of the classic sort of more classic and beloved Brute War maps, from what I can tell, but with their own adjustments to make them actually, balanced in
Yep.
the
mhm,
StarCraft 2 engine.
Basically, from what I've seen, like it's mostly Hyper One, like adapting these Brood War
Hmm.
maps into StarCraft and like adjusting them to be
mhm.
playable there as well. I think it's not just Hyper One, but yeah, they are working on adapting Brood War maps essentially.
Yeah. Which means
Yeah,
that we're
and
getting 4-player maps again.
We do. There's 4-player maps, there's 3-player maps as well. Like that's what's been sort of refreshing about it is that there are just so many concepts that were like thrown by the wayside over the course of SE2's lifespan that are now being reintroduced, like the multiple spawn map locations. Or, like again, I don't know if you watched much of this tournament, but one of the highlights of the finals was Paradox. That's an island map. Straight up island map,
Ooh,
which was crazy.
true. Yeah, you
Oh
would
my
actually have
god.
to drop your units out
Yeah.
or your workers
Yeah.
out to get new bases and ooh,
We had
warp
drop lords
prisms.
everywhere. We had Nidus worms everywhere. We had medevac drops as well. Like it was a wild game and one of the I would say the best games of the finals. If you missed out on it, I recommend the VODs. Again, they're on Twitch and YouTube. But when it comes to going over the event itself, we were following. We were able to cast all the quarterfinals, semis, and the grand finals as well. Shin was looking very competitive. Shin got cheesed the hell out by Homono, as you can imagine.
Hell
Like
yeah.
Homono just proxied the hell out of
And
Shin
most
and just got him.
honorable.
Yeah, got him out of the semis. Um, and yeah, it was it was a very competitive finals between Homono and 3 Point. What I found the most fascinating though was the mirror matchups. We haven't gotten many of them, but 3 Point versus Mixu was very fascinating because it's a ZVZ, but it's a ZVZ where in the early game, one player has Ling Bane, and clearly the other doesn't, right? So it's a very different dynamic
True.
where where 3 Point had to play two base instead. On top of that, Muta v Muta, one player has Scourge, the other doesn't. So Scourge also a big factor. The other thing when it comes to Brood War Zerg, Hydra Den is hatch tech, not lair tech. So you can throw
Yep.
down your Hydra Den a lot earlier to go into
But
Ling Hydra.
yeah,
But the other player has roaches. Like
yeah.
like the mirror
And
matchup
yeah.
is so interesting. It's just like
And
the brain just fires in every
and
direction. Good.
yeah, and also keep in mind, even though Hydra Den is hatch tech, these are different
Mhm.
Hydras. These are not
Yeah.
StarCraft 2 Hydras.
100%.
They
It's
rebalance
just
them
so
specifically, yeah.
yeah, they're balanced very differently, and it's just so unique. And I just like I was just so fascinated watching like the mirror matchups and a lot of these dynamics as well. Seeing Plague come into play in ZVT against SE2 Terran, alongside Dark
Science
Swarm as
vessels.
well. Yeah, Dark
Yeah.
Swarm is OP, by the way. Dark Swarm is crazy.
Yeah.
Like so many of the Brood War spells are just out of this world, and yeah, it was just really fun, and
Yeah.
I do recommend watching. It was just crazy.
Yeah, those science vessels, man.
Yeah,
They're
science
like
vessels with the
ravens, but
radiates.
cracked.
Yeah, they're
They're like
ravens, but
even
they're
more
good.
OP ravens. They're like good ravens, exactly. They're like ravens that can actually do damage.
Yeah, they can. It's just such a fresh take on SE2. Now because it's so new, I don't know how balanced it is. I mean, again, it's still actively being balanced, and I don't think we've seen enough for the meta to settle. There is a meta definitely settling in when it comes to how players have been approaching matches, but it's still a little bit in flux, and players are still trying to figure it out and still experimenting. It's still the early days of SC Evo, which is the most exciting thing. So yeah, it's been really cool to see come together, and it's been a lot of fun to cast. And it is a bi-weekly tournament. Every 2 weeks we're going to be hosting SE Evo.
Indeed. I wonder if that yeah, I wonder if the timing will end up changing if we get news later down the line of potentially other regularly scheduled weeklies, but
Mhm,
till then, Mondays.
mhm.
Bi-weekly Mondays.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And again, just for a bit of a
Excuse
highlight.
me, but that is not true because the StarCraft Evolution League is in fact on Saturdays.
Yeah, it alternates with KSL. So one
Yes.
week we have KSL, the other
Saturdays. There we
week
go.
one week we have
There we
KSL,
go.
the other week we have SC Evo. But just for a bit of a teaser, and again, I do highly recommend watching the finals. The finals was wild, especially Paradox. We had a scenario, Yaku. Okay, you have Homono, you have
Yes.
3 Point, right? ZVT, 3 Points playing Brood War Zerg. And Homono was going Mass Viking, right? He was going initially we had
Naturally.
some crazy openers. So he was going Mass Viking, and he went for a big Viking drop to snipe a base, right? On an island.
Naturally.
And and he did. He sniped the expansion. He was able to shut everything down with his landed Vikings. And then and then 3 Point shows up with a fleet
Which,
of Scourge,
yep,
and Homeowner was
does
trapped
going.
because he couldn't lift his Vikings because there was Scourge sitting on top of him. So he was just stuck. They was just stuck on the island, and they were messaging each other. Like Homer was like, "Excuse me, could you leave, please? Could you let me go?" They're like, "Nope, you're trapped, mate. You're done." At the same time, he's like dropping onto other islands and killing other bases, and Homer is trapped up by himself. And it was crazy. It was just again, it's a dynamic that we never see because island maps just aren't a thing anymore. And it was just, yeah, it was wild. Oh my god, I recommend it. I recommend
You love to see it. At least I
it.
do.
For sure, for sure. But yeah, so it's exciting. It's new as well, and I do. We'll see where it goes. What I will say though, being a little bit more critical about it, is I don't know how much longevity it has. I'm reminded of Starbow. Starbow had a competitive scene and had a ladder for a while, and then it slowly died out as interest did wane on Starbow. I don't know how popular SC Evo is in Korea. I know there was that big Naver event that went on, and it did invite a lot of players. But what I'm curious about over the next couple of weeks is if we get some Brood War players to try, because it feels like right now a lot of when you look at the bracket, when you look at the players, there's a lot of ex SC2 players like Full Heart, Mixu, 3 Point, Shin, Psyark. They're all SC2 players that have been trying it out. We haven't really seen many like mid to top tier Brood War players dip their toes into these open cups. So that's what I'm curious about. I'm curious if the Brood War scene will ever have interest in spreading their wings and trying this. Because if it doesn't, I don't know how big this will be in Korea and how much of a lifespan this will have. That's what I'm interested in seeing.
Yeah, that's gonna be something to look out for. I mean, that Tasteless Time Warp, I think, is what it was called, and
Mhm,
a bunch of the other Naver matchups. I mean, they did get a couple of big name Brute War players. They got Jadong, they got Stork, they got Mini,
mhm.
but I don't know if that was just because of
Yeah.
a one-off thing for them, or if they're gonna, continue to be interested in StarCraft
Mhm.
Evo or SC2 Evo.
Exactly. Yeah, because like this is like your online weekly. This is like your EPT, right? And this is kind of a bit of a way to gauge, are they even playing it in their free time, or are they just playing Brood War like they usually do, and they'll play in these show matches or they play in these one-off tournaments because there's money there, but like they're not really interested in playing it outside of that, right? So that's why I'm curious if the player base does grow over the next couple of weeks, and if the Brood War players show interest in playing in both or not. So yeah, well, we'll see
Yeah, something to look out for.
for sure.
And
With
yeah, it could be interesting to watch it continue to evolve.
for sure, for sure. One of these days, Yaku, you have to jump on and cast. I want you to, I want you to
Yes,
cast
one
some
of these
SE Evo.
days I'm gonna wake up.
uh, so you're gonna have fun. Trust me, you're gonna have fun.
Yeah.
Uh, outside of that, though, other events we had this week, we had the CSO CSO Cup number 73. This has been a weekly or a semi-regular event that's been happening over the past couple of years. Shout out to CSO. What I said SEO. Shout out to CSO Esports for hosting the event, and again, they've been running it for a very long time. CSO, they are an esports team from South Africa, so it's really cool to see some growth and some support coming out from that region. And yeah, it's been really cool to see them hosting this as often as they do.
Yeah,
And definitely
I
when it comes to the
agree with that.
results,
And
go ahead.
I was just gonna say, what's the setup looking like for the CSO Cup typically?
Yeah, I mean it's usually dominated by the European region. We get a lot of European players. This time it was a little bit smaller, is what I will say. The bracket was a little bit smaller, definitely. But Nickrat does come out on top. Nickrat has been looking better and better as of recently. I think it was 2 or 3 weeks ago he won ESL Open Cup Americas. He won Sparkling Tuna Cup as well, and has been cleaning house here at CSO as well. So yeah, Nickrat has been doing good, doing good.
Yeah, pretty solid week for him overall.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's another one of those players that has been improving a lot. I know that we were praising Cristiano earlier for breaking into the top 4 like European Protoss. I feel like Nick Reich is also like climbing the European Terran ladder as well. Like he's been getting better and better, and I feel like he's holding the heels of your top players like Clem and Hero Marine and Spirit.
Yeah, he's in like that tier that we were talking about earlier, where it's like
Mm-hmm.
in kind of the middle right now, but
Mm-hmm.
steadily making progress.
Oh yeah, definitely. So he's a player that I'm keeping my eye on at least. Definitely Newcracked with his rate of improvement. And then heading over to something a little bit more laid back, the Basilisk Big Brain Bounce.
Yes, this time wasn't just a typical show match that they normally do this time. No, 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 no. It was, well, not open technically. I think it was still a little bit more of an invitational, but it was a free for all. And by free for all, I mean
Yeah.
FFA maps, 8-player maps.
Oh. Let's go. I mean, shout out to Basilisk. It feels kind of weird now that I'm looking at it because in my brain, it's like, oh yeah, Basilisk, they've been hosting events for like a year or something. Like it's still it feels like a recent thing, and it is a recent thing in like the history of StarCraft. But yeah, it's been a couple of years now that they've been hosting these show matches. So it's really cool to see that they've kept at it for so long, and here in the off season, even willing to spice it up and not just have these standard show matches, but have fun with it as well.
Yeah, had a lot of fun with it. I'm hoping that a lot of the players as well did. Free for FFA, you were mentioning earlier about how King of the Hill just isn't a common
Hmm.
format because of how difficult it is to organize. FFA is not only difficult to organize, it's also difficult to balance.
Oh yeah, no, yeah. FFA is not balanced at all. It's
Yeah.
it's not balanced at all. But I agree. Like I wasn't even thinking of it, but yeah, the idea of organizing all these players, creating all these lobbies. I imagine the whoever was adminning this event is not easy. I imagine it wasn't easy at all. I remember La Spida did something similar. La Spida, they also had like an FFA event where they had like 12 groups of 8, and then they had like all these matches happening at the same time. And theirs was crazier because they actually had a bracket. They had that group into group
Ooh.
into groups. Like the winners would stay on, and they'd be seeded into another group for another FFA, then into another group, another FFA. Like they had like a proper tournament structure for it. Um, so yeah, it's not easy to run at all, and yeah, it's really cool to see that that Basilisk did branch out and hosted this fun event with some unlikely winners, unlikely winners.
Yeah, a lot of people who I don't immediately recognize. How does the I'm trying yeah, again, it's difficult to organize an FFA because I myself am kind of trying to wrap my head around how the placements and who stays on to play in the next round kind of works.
Yeah, I have no idea.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if there was like any kind of
As far
logic to it.
as far as I know, all that it said was that you have to show up in the chat channel, and Rotterdam was just picking players.
There you go. There you
That
go. So
that makes it so much easier, yeah. That life hacks.
uh-huh. Yeah, that's why these games are a lot more chaotic, and
Yeah. Which
there's a little bit less
yeah. Which
structure to it.
again, technically not an open, or rather it was a little bit less, oh man, technically not an invite, but also at the same time not necessarily open.
Uh-huh.
It is an invitation. If you
It's
think
a
about it, it is an invitational in a way. It's just you're invited immediately to play.
it's a it's a kind of open invite,
It yeah.
kind of.
It's
There
an
you
invitational in the sense
go.
that when you get your invitation, you're going. You're playing immediately.
Mhm.
No,
It's
hey, are
an
you available to play this
invitational in
time?
the
It's like,
sense that
hey,
you
you want
get
to
the
play?
invitation to the
Come.
game.
Yeah.
So it was really fun to see that, and we'll see if they continue to host these. Again, we're in the off season, so now is the time to have more fun with these tournaments and have a little bit more chaos ensuing in these events as well. So we'll see if that does continue. Similarly, I don't think we're going to talk about it, but just because it wasn't this week, but I think Wardy recently announced TLMC 2v2 to continue. Like he recently hosted a
Hmm.
TLMC 2v2 tournament or team game tournament. I think he has another one in the works as well. Again, like
Uh,
now's the time to kind of like do that sort of thing.
I can confirm that in fact he's planning to. I believe there was a sponsor who is helping with that, and he is running monthly tournaments. It's 2v2 and 3v3 alternating until the end of the year.
Mhm. Yeah, there you go. There you go. So now is the
Okay.
time. Now is the time
Yeah.
for things like this.
Yeah. And hopefully we can potentially get a new map pool in team games. Or
I mean,
there
we
is
did
one now,
recently.
but we did recently get one. But
Yeah,
hopefully it's more of a regular thing with
yeah,
this
yeah.
now. Yeah.
Hopefully. With that, we're nearing towards the end of the matches of the week. For those who don't know, we've been going over all the matches that were, sorry, all the tournaments of the week, and it's been quite a lot. I mean, it just shows just how much goes on week after week after week in SC2. But we're nearing the end. We have our tournament, the return of the Tenacious Turtle Tussle. This
Yes.
is our answer to the end of EPT. We started the day or started the broadcast going over the final week of ESL Pro Tour of the weekly tournaments. And this is us stepping up, or this was us stepping up to replace ESL Open Cup Americas.
Indeed, it was. Hosted at similar-ish times to ESL Open Cup Americas.
Mhm.
And with pretty much, I would say, a lot of names who are pretty familiar to that, or
Oh
to
yeah,
ESL America specifically.
yeah, shout out to the players. They were all very thankful that we were hosting the event. A lot of these players have never played in our tournaments before, in Sparkling Tuna Cup or even in previous TTTs, Tenacious Turtle Tussles. So it was really cool to see them all coming together. Shout out to all the support that we got. For those that are curious, the reason why we brought this event back wasn't just to replace EPT Americas, was because we got a sponsor, Mark BT, a viewer and passionate fan of StarCraft, did reach out and did provide funding for these tournaments. And we also got even more funding via Matcherino. There are Matcherino pages for this tournament. So usually it was going to be a $150 prize pool. Because of Matcherino, $300 prize pool for the
Whew.
first edition of this tournament. So it was so much support and so much hype, and the match is really fun as well. So I'm just thankful that the community was as receptive to it as we were as they were.
Yeah. As was I. Of course, we did adjust a little bit when it came to the format of Tenacious Turtle Tussle. Initially, we had it as more of a closed regional kind of event, but
Mhm.
now, I mean, there's no real point to having that, I suppose. So we're opening it up to everyone who is awake at the time.
Yeah, for those that are curious, the Tenacious Turtle Tussle is a tournament that we hosted back in 2023. As Jakub mentioned, it used to be region locked to the Americas, Oceania, and Latin America. But now we just open it up to all regions to properly replace ESL Americas. And uh, yeah, we had players from all around the world coming together here. We were mainly casting Vindicta. We casted a lot of MiGs throughout the course of this event. Again, I recommend the VODs. There was some really good matches. Migs was looking very impressive, specifically in TVP. We were hyping up Shameless earlier, pointing out some of his results, which is why I was a little bit surprised to see Vindicta take Shameless down in the semis. Like, I
I
was coming in
wasn't.
being like, I was like, yo, Shameless is he's gonna have this. Like, Migs is my boy, but I mean, Shameless has been on fire, and Migs popped off. Like, his TVP was on fire tonight or that night.
Yeah. Same, unfortunately, can't be said of his TVZ. Apparently, as
Yeah.
did end up following the sort of in the end there, who was a name that I was very surprised when I saw. I mean, when I even saw the notification, sort of has joined the Discord server. I'm like, oh, he's still competing. That's neat.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, he's a regular in ESL Americas. He is a regular in the ESL weeklies. He's back from Korea. He was in Korea for a long time. Now he's back in Europe. Which is why it was impressive to see him play because I think he played until like 6 or 7 a.m. in the morning. Like he played until he went full degen, full complete degen. Sort of, he was our Max Pack slash Clem this week. Um, and yeah, I mean, I appreciate that he stayed up as long as he did to play. Very impressive stuff. And he did falter a little bit against Zero and Hod Mono. You know, he did drop some maps here and there. So clearly, you know, the competition was fierce between all these players, but sort of was the number one seed coming in, and yeah, did take the win in the end.
Did take it. Did take that cool grand prize of $70.01.
$140 and 1 cent.
Yeah, $140.01.
Okay,
I forget that
okay,
I need to double,
okay.
but I just remember that there was some issue with Maturino apparently.
I have
So
already
a
announced that
couple of players got robbed of 1 cent.
yeah, I will manually adjust the cents because apparently Maturino really doesn't like when the percentage ends with a 6 and then it does weird things. So I will just manually adjust the cents.
There you
There
go.
we go.
Oh, but yeah, it was a really fun tournament. When it comes to, shout out to, of course, there was a B stream as well. Little Mac was also casting on his channel. He was also covering the upper semifinals at the same time. He was following Hon Mono, so we followed Vindicta, and Little Mac followed Hon Mono as well. So big shout out to Little Mac for that. What I will say though is that another event was recently announced, so we will be moving the Tenacious Turtle Tussle. So that is the current plan. It looks like a lot of people did want the NA America's time slot or the ESL America's time slot, and we're more than happy to accommodate. So this is going to be a weekly for the next 6 weeks. We will continue to run this event, but we will be moving to another day as there's going to be another tournament taking its place.
Yeah. Stay tuned to find out which day.
There you go. There you go. So oh, yeah, with that, I do recommend the VODs. Again, the semis were a lot of fun. The grand finals were a little bit more one sided. Also, the finals were a best of three just because it was getting really late for sort of. So we decided to make it a bit of a shorter series instead. And the reason for that is because we had some like 40, 50-minute games
Yep.
beforehand. Homeowner versus Baby
Strictly in
Marine,
home
that
run. Yep.
TBT on Golden Aura was wild. I don't know if you saw some of that.
I didn't get to see that. I was busy getting blinded at the hospital, but
Uh-huh.
I tuned in when I got home and I heard tales.
Oh. I reckon that Homeowner versus Bakery, they had like a 50-minute TVT on Golden Aura. You should maybe put it on like 2 times or something, but you should watch it.
No,
It
I'm
was
not gonna watch that.
I
I
I'm
hear
talking to
long
the viewers, the
TVT.
viewers. Yeah. Um
I
it
hear
was a
TVT. I
game.
think, do I really?
It was crazy. It was chaotic. There was like a base trade. There was a time where our players went down to like 10 SCVs. Then they built back up to like full base saturation despite being down to one. Like that's how crazy it was. Like the game ended, then restarted again, essentially. And it was very close, very intense as well. Despite how long it was, there wasn't a lot of downtime. There was a lot of action. So yeah, it was a much more exciting TVT despite its length. It's not like, you know, we had siege lines and they were just facing off against each other. It was more exciting than that. Thankfully. If not,
Okay.
there would have
That
been problems.
okay. You're selling me on it a little bit. You're selling me on it a little bit now.
uh-huh. Uh-huh. Uh, but yeah, with that, that wraps up TTT. And again, we'll be having the next Tenacious Turtle Tussle next week as well. This is going to be a weekly tournament for the near future, at least. And you know, we're still kind of lying in wait or waiting to see if there is going to be if there's going to be the return of the next EPT season.
Yeah. We'll see about that.
We have our next event.
Indeed, we do. KFC. Or not quite. The Calaris Steadfast Roddy Cup. Yeah, so KFC.
There you go. They close enough. Close enough. You know, you got one letter, and the C as well. I guess you got two
Yeah.
letters.
And the
Yeah.
F, because fast.
There you go.
Yeah.
It's in there, kind of. So we spoke about how we started up, our replacement for ESL Americas, and Steadfast, Galaris, and Roddy. They all merged together into one big Archon, and their replace or this event is a replacement for the year for the European Weekly. So we kind of stepped in for NA. Wardy stepped in for Korea. Wardy's weekly has not begun yet. It's next week. He didn't have it this week, so this week was empty. Next week, Wardy's event is going to be coming in, and we have Steadfast, Claris, and Roddy stepping in for Europe.
Yeah, I like how I like how it all works out in that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we all kind of
I
had our own region.
Yeah, we all kind of had our own region, and unfortunately, because I can't quite have the irony that would have been neat, due to Kalaris and Rotterdam being involved as organizers. I was gonna be like, ah, yes, we have the rest of Asia, which is us, handling the NA tournament. We have Wardy over in Europe handling the Korea side, and then we have
Uh-huh.
Steadfast in Canada handling the EU side. Except it's
Uh-huh.
not just Steadfast; it's also Rotterdam and Kalaris who are.
Nah, it's just Steadfast. That
Okay, it's
fits the
just
narrative better.
Steadfast. Yeah, it fits better. Yeah.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. We could have probably like coordinated a little bit better to have a little bit more cohesion. Where like the people in Oceania do Korea, people in Europe do Europe, and the people in NA do NA. But we all
No, no,
just kind of
no,
went
no.
all over the
We
place.
have to. No, 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 no. We have to do it so that we
Uh-huh.
whatchamacallit, it. You know?
We're crossing the lines.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that's what we're going for. I don't.
We have to do it so that we shift it one, you know?
Mhm. Exactly. So yeah, it's kind of yeah, you're right. It's kind of weird how that worked out where people from opposite regions are supporting opposite regions, but at least all the regions are being supported in some way. That's what's important, I guess, at the end of the day. And yeah, when it comes to this weekly, this is what the last EPT Europe should have been. We have Clem and Max Pax in the finals, and Clem, who once again, for the most part, showcasing his TVP. We were praising him before, if you remember, in WTL, how Clem 3-0'd Hero, he 3-0'd Max Pax, had a close series with Showtime, but still 2-0'd him, and here didn't drop a single map against a Protoss player.
None whatsoever, including Max Packs, which this tournament started just a couple of days after they played in WTL.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the
So
rematch.
yeah, it continues the rematch, but the
Yeah, this
nomination did
was
continue in the end.
yeah, this was 2 days ago, and again, when it comes to the performances, it was great to see Clem and Max X face off again. Clem still showing that he is clearly in form. He was getting his revenge after not being able to make it to the finals of WTL. So yeah, really impressive stuff there from Clem. I mean, as we should be expecting now. What was really interesting to me though is that we had some Korean representation. It's very rare to see Koreans compete in the European weeklies, but we did have a handful of them.
We did specifically just looking at the bracket, Trap and Beyond,
Mhm.
probably the more high profile players coming in here, both of them making fairly deep runs into the semifinals, but yeah, eventually losing in the end.
Yeah, Trap, who was able to bring down Baby Marine, Mixu, and Spirit to make it to the final, so to make it to the semis, and Beyond took down Nicoract, Middle and Skillus to make it to the semifinals as well. So yeah, it was really cool to see a little bit of diversity, and we saw some Korean representation, which again is very rare for these tournaments. So we'll see if that becomes a trend, if they stay up even longer. Something also to bear in mind, Beyond once again staying up. He stayed up for OSC King of the Hill, stayed up for this. Yeah, pure degen.
Yeah, should have known.
Shaking my head. So yeah, this was the Kalaris, the KSR, the KSRC.
KFC, yeah.
The new KS. There you go. There you go. The new KFC hereby done. I like it. I like it. You're making me hungry though. Making me hungry. And that also leads us to the final event that occurred yesterday, which is the OSC midseason playoffs, which did begin. We were lucky enough to cast day one on the CranKy Ducklings, but the midseason playoffs is usually broadcasted by a team of casters. Like usually it's like, maybe we have day one, maybe Wardy has day two, Dave Test has day three, Chicken Man day four. Like usually we take turns. We kind of hand over the torch to
Yeah,
other fellow casters.
because it is a long tournament.
Hmm.
So
It is the
next to
equivalent
impossible
of
for only.
yeah, go on.
I was gonna say next to impossible for only one single person to cast all of them.
Yeah, I mean, this is basically the world finals of online tournaments, right? OC, the midseason playoffs, like they're OSC, they partner with basically every online tournament out there. Every tournament gives points. Players that aggregate points over the course of the year, and they're invited into this massive bracket. It's still too early to really, tell where this tournament's going to go. But you have how many players? You have 38 players stepping into the ring. That's a lot. That's a lot of players facing off, and yeah, soon we'll be crowning our midseason champion.
Yeah, a bunch of the first round matches have already concluded, but not necessarily anything too out of the ordinary here.
Yeah, bearing in mind it's double elimination, so no one's been eliminated,
Mm-hmm.
right? No one has
Yep.
been removed from the tournament yet, just because it was just the first round. But what I would say the highlight of the night for me yesterday was, I don't know if you noticed, for Jumi versus DRG. We just spoke about how DRG's back. We saw him in the show match, in the Super Show match, or the Super Seven. That's it, Super Seven
Yeah.
show match. But here he faced off against For Jumi, and he had a wild series, and for Jimmy, he pulled off the upset. He took down DRG. It's crazy.
Yeah. Seemed like it was a close series regardless, but even still, that's a very good showing for Fujumi.
Hmm.
Fortunately for him, it doesn't quite get any easier from here on out.
Oh yeah, definitely, definitely. But like a big win for Forjumi. It was in game two where DRG he went for a three-base all-in, and Forjumi survived it and outscaled DRG. In game three as well, Forjumi popping off with a death ball of an army as well. Yeah, just really, really impressive performance by Forjumi. Not really something that I was expecting. And hey, if he can take down DRG, like Shin is, I would say, probably the highest rated Zerg player in the tournaments. But suddenly I want to believe a little bit in Forjumi. I want to believe.
Yeah, Jumi Power.
Mhm.
You're Jumi Bear now.
There you go. There you go. So we'll keep you guys updated on the progress of the OC midseason playoffs. Again, it's going to last like a month most likely. So every week we'll be giving some updates on the bracket itself. But with that, that was the events of the week here. A lot of matches, a lot of tournaments did occur over the past week of play, and yeah, it just shows that despite this being the off season, there's still a lot of StarCraft going on.
Yeah, it's still as competitive as ever, pretty much, and there's still a lot of interest going around from viewers to watch these events, from players especially to have something to compete in, and there's
Mhm,
a lot to keep your eye out for, as long as you know where to look.
mhm. Definitely, definitely. As we are gonna be as when it comes to some of the things that we did want to bring up and talk about, we already touched on it a little bit, but yeah, I guess it's kind of a bit of a two-in-one, talking about the end of EPT and the replacement tournaments that have been popping up. um yeah, it's kind of a weird kind of state that we're in right now, Yahoo, when it comes to StarCraft 2.
Hmm.
A lot of people a little bit concerned. There's a lot of ambiguity going on. We recently had a tweet posted
Yeah,
by ESL, saying, look forward to the future, that they're working on stuff.
yep. Yeah, I was gonna say there is a good chance that something is gonna be coming back, a very good chance, but if it's gonna be the same, if it's gonna be what we've kind of become used to,
Hmm.
if it's even gonna be the EPT itself, if it's gonna be completely replaced with like a EWC circuit or something like that,
Hmm.
there is something planned that they have planned, but we don't know
Hmm.
what it is.
Yeah, we can only speculate about the future of the ESL Pro Tour and the future of StarCraft 2 Pro scene. Something that I want to say though, and something that I'm really I want everyone to be proud of is, as soon as the ESL Weekly stopped, like we all stepped up, right? Not just
Yeah,
us, but Wardy, Steadfast, even Dave Testa and Chicken Man. Again, they announced their own Orsasaurus Cup, that we're also going to be accommodating for, and also casting. But yeah, like as
And
soon as like we lost weeklies, we were real quick to replace them.
I want to
yeah,
point something out as well. While Steadfast, Ward and so like all these people we expected to organize things, I was very surprised to see Kyle Harris as part of this as well. As usual, he doesn't
Yeah,
take part in these
yeah,
community initiatives.
yeah. It's usually in kind of those big. I mean, he's usually working behind the scenes in
hmm
ESL, trying to focus primarily on the premier events and organizing them, and making sure they all run smoothly. But we're in the off season. He is dipping his toes more into the online weeklies, the more community events, and that's I would say pretty encouraging to see that there is
a
that
hundred.
much community engagement from somebody
Yeah,
that high up.
for sure, for sure. And I hope that people acknowledge it a little bit more as well. I know sometimes it's not easy to like I don't know, like talk yourselves up a little bit, but like for the SE2 community to be so quick to step in and to step up was really inspiring. It's one thing
Hmm.
replacing weeklies, of course, and it's not like we can all step up and replace
Yeah,
EPT, and replace a whole circuit. I mean, that's something entirely different. But at least when it comes to the weeklies, I do think it's something that the community can be really proud of, coming together like
yeah,
this, and everyone kind of doing their parts as well. Um,
yeah,
whether it's again ourselves, Steadfast, Wardy, Chicken Man, Dave Tesla, it's yeah, really cool.
yeah. Yeah, I definitely think you can definitely SC2 is a community you can absolutely count on in these kind of things. I mean, shout out to Dave Testa and Chicken Man because this is their first time stepping up as to kind of fill a void in a way. I think it
Mhm,
was last year when they announced that GSL was going to massively downsize. That's when
mhm.
they came up with the KSL to try to support the Korean players more.
Yeah, yeah, the KSL as well. We had us with STC for Lima League, if you remember. Like we're like
True.
everyone's kind of like stepping in and stepping up, and um yeah, I hope that ESL also see that and also take note of that as well when it comes to just how impassioned and how motivated the scene is. Another thing kind of in line of all that as well, and I don't know if you heard, but StarCraft 2 was trending yesterday. It was actually trending on Twitter.
Was
And
it? Now, I
yeah, the
use
reason
Twitter
for
that
that
often anymore.
yeah, yeah, and the reason for that is because EWC they tweeted and they posted, "Hey, like which game did you guys enjoy? Let us know, and then maybe we can bring it back." And it got posted to the StarCraft 2 Reddit, and and SC2 got trending on Twitter because they got a slew of responses to that tweet,
Ooh.
and everyone was talking about StarCraft, and everyone was like talking about how hype EWC was, and um yeah, clearly StarCraft got the most attention in that response post. So it was really cool to see everyone coming together for that as well. Um, that was I think yesterday or this morning. We're still alive, Pappy. We're still we're
what?
thriving, Pappy. We're thriving.
We're still
Not out
alive,
yet.
and hey, can't kill us yet.
Exactly, exactly. So hopefully that bodes well. Hopefully that bodes well for the future of EWC and of StarCraft. I'm curious as to what is going to be announced because I'm pretty certain. I don't know if I can say certain, but I think it's very
You have a
likely that there is going to
strong,
be.
good feeling. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's very likely that there's going to be another circuit. But what I'm less certain about is the weeklies. That I don't know, right? Because I'm sure we're going to have
True.
regionals again and EPT and these big offline events, especially with how heavily EWC is investing into esports. But is there going to be enough room to bring back the weeklies? I hope so.
That.
I do hope so. I mean, clearly we're here to fill the void if
Yeah.
need be, but yeah, it's curious to see what comes back and what doesn't.
Yeah, that's gonna be an interest. Yeah, that's gonna be an interesting thing to keep an eye out for because obviously there is like participation has always been very strong in the ESL weeklies, whether it was Asia, NA, or EU. We can always have a pretty stacked bracket or a pretty full bracket in those. Viewership has also done pretty well when it comes to the weekly events, but at the same time, with what you said, with all the other community actors stepping in,
Hmm.
there might be a thinking going down behind the scenes that okay, maybe they can, in a way, kind of offside a little bit, or no, not offside, outsource a little bit of this
Hmm.
kind of thing to the community organizers. But if they do that, then obviously no EPT points. You wouldn't be able to gain points to compete or to become eligible to compete in the bigger events from just playing in the weeklies, which was, I believe, what Hero Marine actually did in
Yeah.
2022. Just
Unless they
played in
open it
every
up.
single weekly and then
Mhm.
got enough points to compete for to be eligible for IEM.
True, true. Unless they open it up, like bearing in mind that from what we're hearing, it sounds like they're still like ironing out the details of what they want for
Hmm.
the next iteration of EPT to look like. And if you remember when WCS ended,
Yes.
when WCS, so back in the day, the World Championship Series was organized by Blizzard, and they used to host their own premier tournaments. It was WCS Premier League. They had the European region, they had the Americas region, they had the Oceanic region.
Hmm.
Had something for everyone in their own way. And they eventually downsized. And originally, the way that they downsized was they ended the WCS Pro circuit, but
They had the
they,
Pro
as you
Tour.
mentioned, yeah,
Oh,
well, before that, they offsetted it by suddenly, okay, now you have Dream Hacks and IEMs
yep.
and Home Story Cups, and they all provide points, and they all like they. I think there was also an
Not Home
event.
Story Cup at the time. It
Yeah,
was,
yeah, yeah,
yeah, pretty much just, yeah, I'm pretty sure it was just GSL and DreamHack, or SSL as well. GSL, DreamHack,
yeah,
SSL, and Super Tournament, I think,
yeah. And I
were
remember that.
pretty much the only events that gave
Mhm,
points. But then also they region locked it to, make it a little bit, to foster a little bit more. So it
mhm.
wasn't just Korean players coming in every single time.
Yeah, basically they instead of running their own events, they handed it off to these third
Yes.
parties, right, to host events themselves, and that's where you get points. And I think there was a Gfinity, there was the
Oh,
Star
true.
Ladder guys,
Yeah, yeah.
they
Know
did an event
those.
as well. Yeah,
But
yeah.
also, yeah.
So what I'm getting at though, the
But
idea of like
and
kind of getting someone else to run events, like
and
that could be a thing as well.
and that is something that ESL specifically
Mhm,
is has done. I mean, it was 2023, 2022. No, 2022 was when Homestar Cup actually
mhm,
became part of the Pro Tour, and they had to, they had to change a couple of the rules. They had to change the format a little bit, but yeah, anybody could play in qualifiers to go into Home
mhm.
Story Cup. It wasn't just it wasn't just invitational plus open bracket, and then it was also the event itself awarded
Mhm.
players EPT points.
Yeah, it was Hermser Cup, and I think the last two TSLs, the Team Liquid Star
Yes,
League.
that's what it was.
Yeah, yeah. I think they also had EPT points. So like clearly they're willing to branch out when it comes to those bigger events, but I mean, maybe they do the same with these weeklies, maybe, and it wouldn't just be us, but like I don't know, even events like the CSO Esports Weekly that we saw as well. Like, would they be willing
And yeah,
uh to
I yeah,
like somehow like bring them into the league and give
yeah,
points? Yeah,
I
who
I
knows?
would say the very big and obvious candidate for that, OSC.
Yeah, yeah.
100%. If ESL wanted to figure something out with OSC, I mean, OSC has been around since pretty much the start of Legacy. Even before Legacy of the Void, they've been around for so long. They've been organizing so
Mm,
many different tournaments. Some of them have fallen to the wayside, but others have come to take its place. So I think that would 100% be the first place if they
mhm.
were interested in outsourcing that that a little bit. Would be to
Yeah,
discuss
yeah.
stuff with OC.
That's definitely like a possibility, especially if they're looking to downsize or outsource, right? Instead of doing things themselves a little bit. It's a possibility. Not saying that it's highly likely, but
Mhm.
it's definitely an interesting thing to think about if they do,
Yeah.
bring that about. Oh,
ESL, who are definitely watching and listening to us.
totally. Totally. So yeah, that's something to think about. Again, the other big thing, of course, is is the next EPT Pro circuit.
Mhm.
I believe there's going to be a DreamHack Atlanta coming up in a month or two, and
Ooh.
I did
Oh.
hear a lot of
Hmm.
people concerned just because they weren't hearing anything. So like, if we haven't heard anything
It
now, then there probably isn't going to be StarCraft at DreamHack Atlanta.
Yeah, but to be fair, that was always to be expected,
Mm,
right? Because we already had one in Dallas, and
yeah.
it's usually ESL likes to have one in North America and one in Europe. I say North America, it's usually America, but every now and then there's one in Montreal.
Mhm. Yeah, I think the weird thing is that I feel like maybe one of the weirder things that's going to be, unless they move the time, is if now our grand finals are going to be at EWC, and if EWC is
Hmm.
like in August every year, like that's kind of a weird season. Like this year was already a weird like extended season, right? Where
Yeah.
we had an extra DreamHack Dallas, and we had like a longer season of 2023. So that's like another weird thing that we have to adjust to potentially, unless
It
EWC moves to later on in the year.
Yeah, that is possible. I was gonna say if they do, they could have it. No, but that would be weird as well. I was gonna say like where it's EWC is one and IEM Katowice is another, but then it's like too close together, if you ask me.
Hmm.
But then again, if you think about it, BlizzCon and IEM Katowice were close together. It's just one was at the end of the year and one was at the beginning. So
Hmm. Yeah, I think I'm just used to that, right? I'm just used to having a finals at the end or the beginning of the year to like start the year fresh with a new season, and with EWC, it feels like that's no longer the case, sort of. So yeah, we'll see what's done with that. We'll see if they adjust or move the event in general. Also, have we lost Yaku? Oh, okay, we're
oh,
good. you, you froze on me for a moment.
only the mind has been lost. The body is
Okay.
still here. The internet is
Okay.
still connected.
Okay. Fair
To
enough.
be
Fair
fair,
enough.
yeah. To be fair, the mind was lost a long time ago. But
It was never there, Pat. It was never. Oh no. But yeah, I guess that's gonna be us wrapping up a little bit here. Just going over the recaps. Did want to touch on, of course, the replacement events and the potential future of what's to come. When it comes to the off season, when it comes to these replacement events, we are locked in for 6 weeks. We have 6 weeks of sponsorship to run the TTT. We have at least 6 weeks. I know that Wardy did announce, was it a month? I think Wardy announced a month of his tournaments. Confirmed,
I would
and
like
I don't know if we've
specifically currently he has 4 weeklies listed.
there. There we go. There
yeah,
we go. So
well,
Wardy, he has 4 weeks confirmed. We have 6 weeks confirmed. I don't know what Steadfast Rotterdam. I don't know what the KFC
yes.
boys have confirmed. Um, but yeah, at the moment, I think a lot of us are more thinking short term. For the CranKy Ducklings specifically, I can say that after those 6 weeks, we are slated for bi-weeklies. So we can't do it every week consecutively, but we can turn it into a bi-weekly tournament instead. But that's kind of what our current
Uh,
plan is, and I don't know what Wardy and the KFC boys have.
unless exclamation mark Patreon in the
True.
chat, you too can help us fund them with
That's
initial turtle tussles.
Yako, that's why you're here, Papi. That's why you're here. You're here to plug the Patreon. Let's go. But yeah, I guess unless we get more support by Patreon or elsewhere, like we could try to keep going for those replacement weeklies. But yeah, right now it does feel like a lot of us are assuming that the off season is gonna maybe last a month or two. That's what I hope is the case. Hopefully it doesn't last longer than that. Potentially it could last until I am Katowice next year. I'm hoping that
Oh
isn't the
boy.
case. But that would make sense for the start of a new season, right? Like for it to be I am Katowice, if that's like the next confirmed event.
I guess, but then I'm so used to having a DreamHack or an ESL Masters
Mm,
beforehand to kind of
yeah,
determine who gets seeded into that. I'm used to having
true.
another tournament before then, is what I'm saying,
Yeah,
to figure out who
I
to
feel
figure
like,
out a little bit who's gonna go in there.
I mean, if you remember, we did have a tournament in December last year, so
Yeah,
that's still an
we had
yeah, but
option.
that was
Atlanta, and
Atlanta.
that was yeah.
Yeah.
The problem is that was Atlanta, and from what we're hearing, SE2 is not going to be at this Atlanta this time. So Yeah, I don't know if
What other
there's.
dream hacks do we have? Quickly,
That's
someone
what I mean.
check.
Like I don't
Melbourne
know if there's another event that we can
Dream Hack
jump on.
2024.
So like a Valencia or a Stockholm or something.
There's one in. Oh no, it already happened. I was gonna say there's one in Melbourne, but that was in
Uh huh.
April.
Uh huh.
2024 locations. There's one in. No, that already happened. Yon, Sweden.
Uh huh. Jönköping.
Yes.
Jönköping. Yeah. There you go.
Atlanta. We already mentioned Atlanta.
Mhm.
Oh no, there's another one in Stockholm, November 22nd. DreamHack
True.
Stockholm.
Yeah, I just saw that as well. Okay, so Atlanta's in October. So Atlanta's next month. Atlanta's next month, and Stockholm is November. If we come back, and again, it sounds like it's most likely not going to be returning for Atlanta, but there's potential to come back for Stockholm, and that'll be our event before I am Katowice, potentially.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So we have a chance. Okay. Interesting. So we'll see if we should have some news before
Yeah.
November, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Ah,
Yeah.
ah.
Yeah.
That's because that's our last chance for a tournament
We
before
could they
IEM.
could pull a DreamHack last chance like they did during
Uh,
COVID.
true, true. But
Scramble
yeah, we'll see.
Celtic together, you know.
But yeah, I guess with that we can just wrap up here for the time being. Again, the plan is to make this a weekly show to go over all of the events of the week, to catch up, and I'm sure we'll have a topic at the end to kind of wrap everything up and wrap everything together as well. There's plenty to go over, right? We can talk about, you know, Stark at Evo or the future of EWC, or whenever there is an announcement, we can go over that as well. I'm sure there's plenty of topics that we can touch on in
Yeah.
the future. For sure. With that, Yaku,
Yes.
I know you want to go to bed, but
I want to pee actually.
oh, okay. Fair enough. Fair enough. But thank you, Yaku, for joining me for the first podcast back after a very long hiatus.
Yeah.
I appreciate you being here, Yaku. Appreciate you. Thank you.
Yes. It was good to be here. It feels like a tradition at this point. You know,
Just an
whenever
annual
we bring this
podcast.
back, just put gotta get the content selling.
Exactly.
And that's
Exactly. Gotta get that content. If people want some more Yaku content, where can they go? Where can they find you?
Ambiguous because there might be potentially, fingers crossed, something coming up in the next couple of weeks, but I'm not allowed to say anything about that. But elsewhere, twitch.tv/Yakuzaku1, twitter.com @EmporeYakuzaku. Now on Blue Ski or Blue Sky, just Yakuzaku, no Emperor. I was stripped of the title when I
Uh,
moved there.
uh-huh.
And exclamation mark Discord in the chat brings you to the CranKy Ducklings Discord server. I'm there, Light is there, Kuro's there, everyone's there.
Okay.
What
Everyone
about you, Light?
is yeah, you can follow me at Light_VIP on Twitch and Twitter. I've been trying to stream on a daily basis, just some cheeky ladder sessions and potentially or guaranteed some other games in the future. Final Fantasy 14 is a game that we started many years ago, and we are still in the first expansion, and we should be playing Final Fantasy 14 next week for the first time all
Ooh.
year. I think it's been a very long time since we played Final Fantasy 14, so we plan on finishing the first expansion and finally playing the second expansion. Crazy, crazy, I know.
I've been seeing a couple of people because I heard that there's a new expansion that came out. I've been seeing a couple of people who are
Yeah.
like wanting to discuss it terribly, but also
Mhm.
they're like spoilers. So they're like,
Fun
yo,
fact,
when are you
uh,
people gonna finish?
I'm pretty sure since Kura and I started playing Final Fantasy 14, there've been 2 expansions released, and we're still in the first one.
I can
So
confirm that this is the second expansion that we see release.
yes, the second expansion. So give us
And
like 10 years or something,
I
and we'll
just
eventually get there.
I just want to give everyone a timeline. Final Fantasy XIV releases expansion every other year.
Yeah, it's too soon, if you ask me. It's too frequent. Like, how can we catch up if they keep releasing expansions every 2 years? What do they want from us? What do they expect? God, too much.
You just gotta devote your soul. You just gotta commit, papi.
Exactly. So yeah, check out my own personal channel if you wish. Otherwise, we're here on the CranKy Ducklings, typically on a daily basis. But again, now we're in the off season, so now we're here most days, but not every day. I believe our next broadcast should be tomorrow. Yeah, every day actually.
Yeah.
Tomorrow we're gonna be live with a viewer replay cast. I've been just accumulating replays
Ooh.
throughout
Oh, let me
the
try to submit something.
fast. Oh
Let me
no.
try to find something to submit.
Oh no. I've been accumulating replays over the past couple of weeks, and I have not had the time to actually cast because a lot of these events have been quite long. So I just haven't been able to go over them. But tomorrow we should be going over some of the viewer submitted replays from the chat. So yeah, just a more laid back, a more chill stream tomorrow.
Yeah.
Potentially some Yako replays.
No, I don't have
Oh,
any that are interesting, I think.
Okay,
Well, no, I
fair
do
enough.
have a few that are interesting, but they involve me losing, and I'm not. I don't want
Okay.
people to see me lose.
Fair enough. Fair enough. And also a special shout out to Kuro. Kuro, of course, was handling the
Yes.
production, is behind the scenes, is currently streaming, of course, handling all the overlays and handling everything that you see at the moment. And Kuro should also be live next week, streaming her POV of Final Fantasy.
Yeah.
Yes, for those who don't know, we do dual stream with Light, so we both stream our POVs, and mine is the less
I don't.
chaotic one.
Just to.
There you go. There you go. So you can check out Kuro. Kuro also sometimes streams other games as well. So I'm sure the Twitch channel is going to be a little bit more active over the next couple of weeks and over the next couple of months. If you want to support the CranKy Ducklings, you can follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Discord. We are live and we do post on all social media platforms when we go live. On top of that, Patreon to support us monetarily. Our Patreon is set up to fund our tournaments. So if you want to help grow our tournaments, whether it's Sparkling Tuna Cup, Sea Duckling Open, or Master Swan Open as well, then Patreon is the place to be.
Yeah. Or you can sub here, but you got options. You know, if you have the money for it, you can do both. But
There you go. There you go. Special shout out to Rodin18 in the chat as well. I did notice like a couple of hours ago, but we did get a resub in the chat from Brazil,
oh,
papi.
neat.
Oh my god. Thank you so much, Rodin18, for the 18-month sub. Thank you. Thank you.
Much obliged. Appreciate it. Obliged? Yeah, obliged works.
Yeah. Obrigado.
Yeah. Muchos.
Muchos subscription. And with that, we're going to be wrapping up here. Again, we'll try to make this more consistent. We'll be tuning in, or you can tune in next week for the next podcast. Otherwise, thank you for watching. Thank you for tuning in. Yaku, do you have anything you want to say before we head off for the evening?
Mostly, I really want to pee.
There you go. Everyone,
Be
if you're out there,
careful when you buy the lemonade.
everyone, if you're out there, don't forget to drain your disruptors, papi. We'll see you guys next time. Until then, thanks for watching. Hasta luego.
Bye.
Ciao.
Bella.